Okay, so we will open this meeting of the CPDC. We do have some members online and maybe members of the public. So Andrew, would you go through the opening of how we handle hybrid meetings?
Sure thing. As Heather has just mentioned, thank you for coming to the CPDC meeting of Monday, February 9th, 2026. I am Community Development Director Andrew McNichol. From staff to my right is Senior Planner Olivia Knightley. For the board tonight, we are running a hybrid meeting. We have two members in person, both Tom Armstrong and Chair Heather Klisch. On the Zoom tonight, members Andrew McLaughlin and Hillary Mative are on. Because we are running a hybrid meeting style, the board will likely follow in its normal procedure in that an applicant will present their application to the board. The board will provide comment and question amongst themselves to the applicant and then open up for public comment from there. If you do have public comment, if you're here in the room, please just raise your hand and the chair can look to acknowledge you that way. If you are on the Zoom, please use the raise hand feature found under reactions, or if your camera is on, you can simply wave your hand around. We'll look to capture you that way. You can chat directly to the staff, but we would prefer to try to get you unmuted if we can help it. There's a sign-in sheet here in the room. If you haven't signed in, please do so. Otherwise, this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted on all local channels and will be on the RCTV YouTube after tonight.
Okay, terrific, thank you. So our first order of business is about the definitive subdivision application at Small Lane Extension. The application has been withdrawn. Do we need to vote or anything about that?
Yes, you would just vote to, I guess, approve the withdrawal without prejudice request.
Okay.
Well, also move.
Wonderful.
Withdraw.
No, sorry, I'm just realizing there, just so you're aware, there are some files that show up as PDFs in our thing, in our drive, that for some reason I can't
Don't open.
That happens from
That
time
happens
to time.
sometimes, yeah.
It does happen from time to time. So Tom has moved that we approve the withdrawal request. Any seconds?
Second.
I think, Andrew, did you just second?
Yes.
Oh, we can barely hear you. Can
I'm
we
gonna
turn
turn
that
my volume up, see if that helps.
Okay, so
Second.
Andrew's, yes, there, now we hear you, thank you. So we'll do a roll call vote because we have members online. Let's see, Andrew,
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
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 Yes, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is a public hearing, opening of a public hearing for a site plan review for the special permit application, special permit for mixed use application at 281 Main Street by 281 Reading LLC. And I imagine that we have a public hearing notice that we need to read into the record. Tom, would you like to read that into the record?
Sure.
You're here, that might be the easiest.
Let me get my glasses polished up here. Okay. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to MGI Chapter 40A, Section 9, and under Reading zoning bylaws Section 4.3, 4.4, 4.6, 5.3, and 5.6.7. The Community Planning and Development Commission, CPDC, will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 9, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board Meeting Room at Reading Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Massachusetts, and through the remote and online measures below to hear the special permit / site plan review application submitted by 281 Reading LLC for the property located at 281 Main Street, Assessors Map 12, Lot 42. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing structures to construct a 4-story mixed-use building with multifamily residential units, street-level commercial space, surface parking, and associated site improvements. A copy of the application and accompanying plans are available to the public at Town Hall by appointment and on the Town Hall website the Thursday prior to the hearing. I think that's all I need to say.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Do we have somebody here to make a presentation?
Yes, Madam Chair. Representing the applicant, my name is Attorney Jesse Schomer.
Okay, would you like a podium?
Sure, I was just going to ask,
Oftentimes we move the podium over here, and that it tells people where to stand so they can
I'm
be
fine
seated.
standing back there if you can hear me okay though.
We can hear you, but I don't think the people online can.
I think,
You, Olivia?
right? Okay.
So once again, my name is Attorney Jesse Schomer. I represent the applicant 281 Main Street. With me tonight, Madam Chair, are representatives of ownership, Severio Fulciniti. Also with me tonight are Stefano Basso, project architect from SV Design, Carlton Quinn, Allen and Major Associates, civil engineers of the project, and Stefan Zeitz of Vanass and Associates, the project traffic engineers. We have provided a slide deck that kind of gives a high-level overview of the project. I wonder if that's possible to put up on the screen, Andrew.
Sorry, 1 second. You were looking for the slides?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have those.
If I can, real quick, Heather, just want to unmute Hillary so she can acknowledge one thing.
Okay,
Hello, I am recusing myself from this agenda item.
thank you, Hillary.
Perfect, thank you very much. Are you able to advance the slides, Andrew,
Yep.
or is there something I can do for that?
I got you.
Okay,
I'll
thanks so
try
much.
to read your face, but you can always just say next slide.
Say the word. Thank you very much. So you can see the first slide here. This is kind of an overview and a rendering of the proposed building at 281 Main Street. You can see from the front of the building here, you have a 3-story presentation at street level. The rear of the building is a 4-story structure, and there's parking underneath the rear of the building there in the back of the site. And Stefano will go through his architectural plans in just a moment. The proposed building, as you can see on the right side of the slide here, is 24 residential units. 3 of those will be affordable units in accordance with the town's inclusionary housing bylaw. They will be a mix of 19 2-bedroom units and 5 1-bedroom units. There's a proposed 2,400 square feet of retail space on the ground floor. We're currently showing on the architectural plans those split up into 2 separate spaces, but the final orientation of those will depend on the final tenants that are selected for those spaces. There's a total of 39 parking spaces that are proposed on the site, but I'll warn you all that the site plans are in somewhat of a state of flux because we're currently addressing an issue of fire access with the fire department, and so there may be some modifications to that parking count and the location of those and the location of the loading zones to accommodate the fire department's need for access and ability to turn around their vehicles on the site. Andrew, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. This just kind of gives you a different view of the same building from street level on Main Street there. We're showing a yoga studio and a cafe, but again, those are conceptual. We don't know what the final tenants of those spaces will be. This is located in Priority Development Area 2B, and we are going to be requesting, as we'll talk about tonight and in future hearings, I'm sure, a partial waiver of the section 5.6.7.2 with respect to the orientation of commercial as opposed to residential uses to provide a mix of approximately 10% of commercial use in this building. The site itself, as we'll go on to future slides, is a total of 33,554 square feet. It's zoned Business A. And if we could go to the next slide, Andrew. This is kind of an overview, as you can see, of the Main Street corridor here. The site today, and we'll zoom in a little bit closer to the site in just a moment, it contains an AUL, which stands for Activity and Use Limitation, and that restricts the kind of uses that you can make of the property due to environmental conditions on the site. That restricts the uses on the site as well as the brook that's in the rear of the property that Carlton will talk about when he discusses his civil plan. The current footprint of the building is 1,800 square feet. It lacks most modern systems. It's somewhat of an outdated building. Challenging ADA access for that building. There's no second egress for the upper level of the building. And there's really not much, if any, streetscape or engagement of the building. Minimal plantings on the site. So this, from our perspective, presents an opportunity to beautify the site and present a building that's nicer and makes a more effective use of the space while also beautifying the site and the area. There's also currently no public EV infrastructure, and it's disconnected from the abutters. The project will include publicly available EV charging for the commercial spaces and the tenants of those. This location, in our view, on the Main Street corridor, is a gateway location, high visibility. It's across the street from, you may remember, the 262 Main Street project also being developed by Severio and his companies. The location is also in proximity to the commuter rail station. It's a little bit over a half a mile to the Reading commuter rail station. So consistent with the town's goals of transit-oriented development and maximizing density in this kind of location to reduce occupancy of single occupant vehicles and reliance on those for commuters. If we go to the next, the next plan, Andrew. As I mentioned previously, the proposal is 24 residential units. 3 of those will be affordable. It'll be a balanced unit mix, consistent with our analysis of the market in terms of what types and sizes of units will be of greatest service to the market and residents of Reading and surrounding towns. The building itself will be an elevator-fed building. Therefore, there will be a specified number of accessible units that are accessible on day one, but the elevator will provide accessible adaptation for all of the units in the building. So it'll be the sort of building that can have seniors, local residents who want to age in place in their community, maybe move out of a larger home, but also stay in the community that they maybe grew up in or had their children grow up in and don't want to move to another town.
I don't want to interrupt your flow, but can I ask a
Sure.
question about, you said the
Certainly.
elevator provides adaptive accessibility?
So the
different
units,
from regular accessibility?
Stefano can talk about this in his remarks, but by code, the building is required to provide, is it 5% of accessible units on day one? Because there's an elevator, all of the other units can be adaptable, accessible units. So they can be adapted into units that are accessible because you can get to them with the elevator.
That confused me more.
That
That's okay,
that
that's
confused-
okay.
that
You can
confused-
just-
We'll just, that confused me more, but we can go back to that.
Okay. I'll leave that to the experts,
Yeah,
Stefano,
exactly.
to talk about that in greater detail. So it's some additional points in the bottom, as I mentioned, public EV charging, landscaping on the site, and improved buffer to the brook in the rear of the site, as well as upgraded sidewalks, and really try to connect this to the streetscape on Main Street as these kind of properties up and down Main Street get developed. This will also remove existing fencing and connect the site with existing neighbors. Andrew, if you could go to the next slide. This is a aerial view of the site as it exists today. You can see the existing building there, kind of tucked in the upper left-hand corner of the site. Most of the site is a parking lot in its existing condition, and there's not much landscaping to speak of. A lot of the landscaping is just a grassed-in area. The area to the rear of the parking lot, that's the wetlands that Carlton will talk about in just a few minutes. This currently has one curb cut, so in its existing condition, this provides no ability for fire vehicles to turn around. In our conversations, and we have met with the fire department in the DRT meeting that the town organized, their concern was in the redevelopment of this site, they want to improve on this existing limited fire access by providing an ability for their vehicles to turn around on the site. And so Carlton will be talking about that in just a few moments. Currently, there's no public EV, there's no dedicated loading, it's a narrow drive aisle, minimal landscaping, and it's really just a standalone disconnected site. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to improve those aspects of the site in all manners. Andrew, could you go to the next slide? So now we're moving into the proposed condition overview site plan. This is sort of conceptual in nature. You can see the parking around the side and the rear of the site as it exists today. There's a hashed area there. That'll be the loading zone / turnaround area for fire vehicles that Carlton will talk about. And then the proposed building in the top right corner of the site. Proposed footprint of that building is 5,200 square feet, and the rear of the site will be a covered podium parking area with the 4 stories of building above. The net tree impact of this, there will be +9 trees, 2 removed, and 11 total new trees being planted. The parking spaces on the site, we're proposing 30% of those to be compact spaces in accordance with the zoning bylaw, and maintaining the same single curb cut in its approximate location that exists today.
Where's the, and back on the prior diagram, where's the turnaround area now proposed for the fire department?
It's that hashed area that you see next to the building. So Carlton will walk you through that, but it'll be sort of a multi-point turn that the fire vehicles will need to do by coming in,
That's what
angling back there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. It'll be, candidly, it'll be somewhat of a challenging maneuver, but it'll be something that happens very rarely in a controlled environment. So
Okay.
That's really the only and most optimal way to make it happen on a site like this without any connections to other budding properties. So on the next slide, this is kind of some bullet points of the facts of the project. 4 stories, 24 units, 1s and 2s is the bedroom mix, and it's 19 2s, 5 1s, as I mentioned. 2,400 square feet of rentable commercial space. That'll be divvied up into either 1 or 2 commercial spaces we're anticipating. The gross floor area of residential is 21,500 square feet. Gross building area, 29,380. Net area of the building is 23,660. FAR is a little bit under 1. Units per acre come out to 31.16 units per acre. And if you could go to the next slide, I'm just about finished. We have just a couple of additional renderings of the property. You've seen 2 of these views, the top left and the top right. The bottom left shows you the rear of the building and some of the parking there. I'm sorry, the side of the building and the parking there, and then you see it from a different angle there along Main Street in the south.
Anything planned for the roof of the 3-story building?
There's a roof deck. You can kind of see it tucking in up at the top on the left side there.
Good.
That was one of the things that the Strata building across the street really doesn't have that kind of a amenity space for residents. That was really important to Severio as he was designing this building with Stefano and his team. So the next slide, this goes through some of the representative exterior materials that we're proposing for the building. Stefano can walk you through the specifics of those. And then the next slide outlines some of the, quote, lessons from the Strata project, which we're all very proud of that project, but we did learn some lessons of that. I understand that this is only the 3rd project that's being developed under this fairly recent zoning established for the area. So where the Strata had some.
Can I just
Sure.
interrupt you? Can you
Yeah.
get a little bit more specific about what the Strata building was? Not all of the members of the CPDC were there then, so they might not know exactly what building you're talking about.
So Strata it's the building across the street. It just started under construction and there's site work going on there now. It's a mixed use similar to this kind of building with commercial spaces on the ground floor, residential above. That site is a little bit different because it's less of a narrow site, and it's a little bit, whereas this one's a little bit deeper and narrow, that one's wider and a little bit less deep. So there's parking that goes around the rear of the building, whereas this one, there was no ability to have the parking lot go all the way around and wrap around the entire building. So this one has parking on side and rear. Strata has parking around the entire building with the building right on Main Street. Some additional lessons from the Strata project were configuration challenges, commercial carved around systems. This project we're proposing, we believe this to be a right-sized 2,400 square foot commercial components in the front of the site, using the rear of the site for that podium covered parking. And then amenities, that was a big issue with Strata. There wasn't room for amenities in that building. This one, we're proposing bike storage on the ground floor. Stefano will walk you through in his plans. and then the rooftop terrace for the benefit of the residents. Going to the next slide, this is some additional bullet points of the project and how it compares to other representative projects. The 250 to 262 Main, that's the Strata project that we've been talking about a little bit. So from our perspective, these factoids of the project on those other recently approved projects, this one we feel is right in the ballpark of what the CPDC has approved for this zone, and we feel it's consistent with the intent of your zoning bylaw, and really offers an opportunity to activate this project site and improve the utilization of it with some additional residential and expanded commercial space on the site as well.
Just one point.
Sure.
With the 4 stories in the rear, are some of the residential units going to be on the first floor? Is that why you've got a 10% here as opposed to, and you're asking for a waiver?
We are.
With the 10%. And
Yeah.
that's the only waiver you're asking for?
That is, yes. So the residential, they're all above, they're all second, third, and fourth floor of the building. The reason for the waiver is that a significant portion of the ground story, as it were, is taken up by that podium
Parking.
parking.
Yes, okay, gotcha, okay.
The 346, 348 Main one is the one that we went back and forth on for a long time about around having such low commercial space, right? And that was because it was a single office building. So I just want to be I see that, 250, 262 Main Street did have 25%, so I just kind of want to call the attention to the CPDC that I think the intention of the bylaw was to have 25%. So I guess just be careful in saying it meets the intention of the bylaw. The intention of the bylaw was to have 25%. So please continue, but I wanted to
Thank you.
put a note on that.
If you could go to the next slide, Andrew, I promise I'm just about finished. So with respect to the existing commercial tenant of the project site, that's the Bay State Physical Therapy Office. They've been in the space for over 10 years. They're a Reading local business. They're committed to expanding their presence. So the section of the zoning bylaw that we've requested relief from on the 10% versus 25% commercial component, the language of that section provides that the board may grant waivers of that section, in particular in situations where there's an opportunity to retain existing tenants in this sort of location. So we have been in contact and in direct negotiations with Bay State Physical Therapy. They want to stay in the space. They want to stay in Reading. They love the location. This project and the fact that Severio is also developing the Strata right across the street presents us with a pretty interesting opportunity, which Bay State themselves think is interesting as well. Specifically, they're in talks with us to move their location actually to the Strata building. So they're going to move across the street into a larger space. It's more better adapted for their needs. It's a newer space, obviously, and it presents an opportunity to have less time for them to be kind of waiting around for this building to be built. So Strata is going to be built first. This one won't get started until Strata's done. Bay State will move over to Strata, and then this one will get started. There'll be no interruption in Bay State. They'll move right across the street as if the business was going the entire time. So in our view, this is consistent with that intent of keeping those local businesses. And in this situation, we think it's actually improves on the language of the bylaw as it's stated by giving the opportunity for this tenant to move across the street into a better space and have no sort of lag time where these businesses are waiting around for new suitable commercial space for them to be built. Once this building is built, we'll have 2 new businesses, maybe a yoga studio and a restaurant as are shown on there, but we don't exactly know what those ultimately
So the
will be.
opportunity, think it correctly, the opportunity is for the Bay State Physical Therapy location. The opportunity for them to stay in town has to do with another building.
Correct.
It doesn't have anything to do with the amount of commercial space that will be provided in this building.
It's coming back, right?
The move.
It's
No,
not coming
they're
back.
not coming
It's not.
back.
So they're just moving to the new building.
That's their preference.
So this, I don't think this has anything to do, I'm just saying, I think it has actually very little to do with keeping a business on this site. Will certainly stay in town and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I just wanna be really clear, actually, I'm hearing that a little bit differently.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it's the way that the bylaw is written, it's a little bit ambiguous in my opinion. The intent of it is to keep local businesses local. And in this situation, Bay State, they prefer the other building. Even if this one gets built, they still want to move across the street. They like the space better. They think it works better for the nature of their use. So regardless of whether this building gets built, they're moving.
So we did a great job on the one across the street, because then we're keeping the local business. And now we'll work on this one too.
What I would say is we're keeping the local business and we're adding 2 new ones. So win-win for the town, win-win for commercial.
How does
And
the
win-win
square
for the
footage of commercial in this compare to the square footage of commercial in the existing building?
I believe it's 1,800 square feet existing.
Yeah, the first floor at 281 is 1,800. But you've got to keep in mind that in terms of ADA accessibility, it's a totally different beast. The building is not sprinklered, there's no elevator. The second floor is basically non-rentable. And right now they're in 1,800 square feet, but their patient model has actually evolved. And so what they need now is not only to modernize, but they need to expand. And the focus right now for them is just improving patient outcomes. Just keep in mind, Bay State Physical Therapy is part of a larger system. They have about 150 locations. And we did include a letter of support in there, but we've already agreed to terms with them too. So we can't sufficiently provide the amount of space that they need at this site. They're actually close to 3,000 in the new site.
So this building, the current building has 1,800 square feet, and that's across the 2 floors. It's an entirely commercial building.
The first floor is 1,800, it's just under 1,800 square feet.
Okay.
The second floor is not rentable the way it was originally renovated. It's, there's no secondary means of egress.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew did have his hand up on this.
Andrew, go ahead. And sorry that we keep it is it
Not at
okay
all,
for asking
not at
questions
all.
along
No,
the way?
please
Andrew,
do.
please go ahead.
Thank you. So the waiver is really, the reduction of the commercial space is due to the ability to have parking, correct?
Correct.
Not necessarily to keep Bay State at Strata.
Well, we're maintaining the existing lot. Again, it's staying exactly the same. We're holding all the same lines.
Okay,
That, Andrew? Okay.
thank you.
Let's go back to that. There's 39 parking spaces existing, and there will be 39?
38 existing,
38 existing today, and there
Today.
will be 38.
39.
39, okay.
But we've also allocated a loading area, which is not currently featured on the site.
Okay.
Would it, I've got one more slide, but it's kind of reiterating points I've already made. Would it be helpful
You
to?
can finish your presentation.
I'm really done. It's kind of making the same points and summarizing what I've already said. If it would be helpful, I know that there's been some questions about how the site operates. Maybe it would make sense to have Carlton come up and walk through his civil plan.
Sure.
That would be beneficial for everyone.
Good evening, I'm Carlton Quinn with Allen Major Associates, civil engineer on the project, Woburn, Massachusetts. The original proposed plan that's in front of the board, we went to the DRT, kind of the department head meeting, and got some pushback on two major points that affected the original layout of the building. The one you see in front of you is modified. One was the fire department absolutely did not want to reverse into Main Street. The state fire code allows for 150-foot dead ends, which this conformed to, but they did not, under any circumstance, want to reverse their fire truck by pulling in, reversing out into Main Street, just as a safety issue, because they'll have to put personnel out in the street. Snow, fire, nighttime, it was just kind of a non-starter with them. The other issue we had is our original proposal had 40 parking spaces, but due to the constraints of the wetland, 2 of those stalls were within the 100-foot riverfront area in an area that's not currently impervious. We had an argument of how we could meet the wetland requirements by doing it, but Chuck, the agent, kind of said that they've been through this process before with the commission and they absolutely did not want any like growth of impervious towards the stream. They kind of wanted to hold the existing impervious lines. So as part of the modified plan you're going to see here is we provided a area for the truck to turn around, where it basically pulls into the striped area there, just almost similar to a parking space. It's basically a parking space that can fit a fire truck. So they can pull in head first, reverse out, kind of three-point turn and go back out the site. We met with Chief Nelson and Lieutenant Robideau, the fire safety officer. We went over the revised site plan. We went through various options of what we could do to improve the plan. And we kind of settled on this, basically due to the constraints of the site. It was really the only option we could provide. Providing like a 360-degree access will not work here because of the same reason with the 100-foot buffer. We can't really put a driveway on that side of the site because that line, kind of the 25% of the site to the bottom right, that line right there is kind of an area we need to keep existing landscape being landscaped due to the Conservation Commission's kind of general standards. So, throughout the meeting, the fire department requested different items. They definitely didn't want to drive with a roof over them. So the area you see here is clear to the sky. There's no columns, no roof, no building at all over the area that's hatched. You can see kind of the red dashed area we've kind of outlined there. That's kind of the proposed overhang areas where you see the podium at the back and kind of along the edges at the front, but nothing over the fire department. And we've also removed the 2 parking stalls that were kind of outside the podium. As part of this, we kind of reoriented all the parking, and the old loading zone now is parking kind of down where he's parking right there. So we're able to park that out, move the transformer up to the front of the site, and basically we only lost 1 parking space. But we've meet all the requirements of the fire department and the Conservation Commission, we believe, through our discussions with them. Obviously, we did want to introduce this site plan to you before we submit it to the COMCOM to see if there was any additional changes maybe we should include prior to submission to the Conservation Commission. And that's kind of where we are at now. If there's anything else on the site plan, I can certainly go through setbacks or pedestrian access.
The first diagonal line, my eyesight's not that great. It looks like it's 200 something. And what's that supposed to represent?
That's the 200-foot riverfront.
Okay, and then the second one is the wetlands line?
That's the 100-foot.
That's the 100-foot?
Yep. And then the wetlands is kind of off. Below you'll see a 35 and a 25, and then it's basically just off the property line, about 10 feet is the edge of the stream. And that stream is man-made. It's all stone, built ditch. Just over time, it's become a jurisdictional stream.
Okay, and what's the history of flooding in that area?
There's no
For that specific site?
There's no floodplain associated with the stream on site.
Okay.
For FEMA. The site does sit up 3 or 4 feet, maybe 5 feet from the edge of bank of that stream. So if it does flood, it would just be in the wetland areas to the rear. Nothing comes into the site.
Okay, because the area to the rear is lower than the area to the front.
Correct.
It's going to be 3 to 4 feet higher.
When you see the aerial, there's about a third of the site below that kind of line on the bottom of the site here that's going to stay completely vegetated. It's existing vegetated. It's going to stay vegetated. It's approximately 10,000 square feet of existing vegetation that will stay that way in perpetuity, basically, because it's in the 100-foot riverfront area.
Okay.
I have a question about this. I know this is the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, but I'm still a little confused. There's the line for the 100-foot riverfront area. I thought I heard you say that there shouldn't be any impervious area in that area, but now I'm feeling like I misheard you because this shows the parking lot there and a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, I think maybe I wasn't clear. We cannot push our impervious any closer to the stream as it currently sits. So
Okay.
the edge of the current parking lot area is the edge of the proposed parking area.
Okay.
We can't put more impervious in areas that are landscaped today.
Okay, all right.
Can I follow up? You've got 39 spaces that you're creating. That leaves, hypothetically, 1 per unit at 24 and leaves 15 others. And yet you've got some commercial space. You don't have a lot of other duplicate space. Have you thought about that? in terms of the ratio and?
So we do meet the requirements for parking. We have 8 spaces for the commercial and 30 for the 24 units, which meet,
Exceed.
well,
We exceed.
we exceed it by 1 stall, the required amount of parking. We're not looking for a waiver for parking.
Okay. Go ahead.
And then we also provided the loading zone, which is, it far exceeds the requirements for a loading zone. And I should also note the drive aisle was another thing we gave to the fire department, where across the street we had 22-foot drive aisles. Because we knew the fire department had concerns here, we've provided a 26-foot drive aisle right there as you come in, for them to park their vehicles and other vehicles to get around.
Can I ask, similar to the wetland and riverfront discussion, and it's something I realized late, and it will probably be a conservation discussion, but being zone A wellhead doesn't matter necessarily in this design of the stormwater, I don't believe.
A zone A would be to a surface drinking water, not a
Yeah,
well.
that's what I thought, so it's not something I'm too familiar with, but
No,
something we
there's
probably
no
want
zone
to
A on this
find.
property.
Thought there was.
Is there a zone 2?
My GIS says zone A, but I could be wrong there.
I'll have to get back to you. I think we did look at that. I don't remember seeing a zone A, but we'll come back and take a
Yeah,
look at
it's
that.
something I thought of late, apologies.
Do you have an idea as to how much impermeable space you've got now versus the existing building?
I should have.
Then the next one is, where's the water drained to?
So currently, if you could give the existing site there.
Yep.
So this is the existing conditions plan, and it currently, this is not the existing conditions plan, but the existing conditions plan, basically, the roof is just shed off to the sides by gutters. The parking lot, you'll see, is caught by catch basins. One just to the left of is there, one down by the kind of the building, and a third one kind of where he's parking there. It's all collected in a pipe system and piped directly out into the stream with no sort of stormwater mitigation or water quality of it. The proposed stormwater system will provide a current design with TSS removal, recharge. We're reducing the rates and volumes. The volume of water going out to the back in the 2-year storm will be reduced by 88%, the 10-year storm by 42%, the 25 by 27, and the 100-year storm by 12%, by taking that water, holding it in an infiltration system and letting it recharge into the ground. So this should help flooding situations downstream of the property, as we're holding more of the stormwater back than the existing conditions is.
Let's see, is that the rectangular box area?
Correct,
Where
that's the proposed
okay,
infiltration
that's where,
system.
yeah, okay. Okay,
This is a roof leader right from the building.
Correct.
Conservation is doing a stormwater permit on this one? Does it need a
I
stormwater?
don't believe it triggers a full stormwater permit. I don't think there's an acre plus of disturbance.
Site's less than an acre.
So it will just be an NOI, which I don't believe has been applied for.
No, we were gonna, and then we decided we wanted to kind of get some feedback from the board, and then we'll file it, in the next week or two, depending on the feedback we get from this board.
I'm also seeing that it's in a zone A surface water protection zone, so it seems like that should really be checked. And I know you said that it was a man-made stream, but it also looks like it's part of a larger stream, so it may have been channelized sometime. I'll just kind of note that for the public. I don't know the history of it, but streams are, I don't know. Even though they have concrete around them, sometimes they've just been channelized and they once were natural. I just want to be mindful of that.
Okay.
Other questions from Andrew up there? I know Hillary has recused herself.
Doesn't have his hand up.
Nope, no questions on my end.
Okay, I have, I think, 2 other questions. On the rendering, it shows all this cafe seating outside, which looks lovely in the rendering. We also, as presented, know that we don't know exactly what the tenant is. What happens to that space if it's not a cafe? Is it just empty blank space?
So the intention would be, and I think, let's say that the corridor needs more engagement, right? And ultimately, an improvement at this site would be to better engage the streetscape. And so Stefano has come up with this concept where we can make this seating available. So obviously the intentionality in it is we would prefer a food service or some kind of engaging use that can benefit from cafe. Of course, we can't guarantee who's going to be in there, right? But ultimately, we're not. I think the biggest takeaway is that we're trying to maximize commercial space here. We're not coming to you trying to game the system. We're not putting space in the basement. We're maximizing what's available. And ultimately, what this waiver allows us to do is to maximize the design, to improve the design. We learned a lot across the street, and across the street is going to be a beautiful project, but we also know that we're living in a very different world, and ultimately, we've seen in, 7 years now since the bylaw has passed, only 3 projects have come before the board in this corridor, because it's super challenging. It's super challenging to meet those requirements. And at Strata, we exceeded every element of the bylaw, right? I mean, we went over and above. We've got excess parking, you name it. But here, what we've tried to do is stay true to the existing site, the orientation, so that it fits, but also maximizing some of the opportunities. So we do have that space out there. We could modify it if the board feels, you'd like to provide some feedback in that you'd like to see more interior commercial space, or you'd like to see us make some changes in terms of how the space is allocated. But ultimately, what Stefano has done has come up with some very vibrant, active, engaging space that allows us a great deal of flexibility. And we hope that there'll be a food service use, because I think the community would like that. But obviously, we can't make that guarantee.
That raises kind of 2 questions. One, at Strata, we had a number of issues with regard to the dumpsters and where they were located and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And I forgot the other one. The one thing I would like to see at the next session is a comparison as to what you've done at Strata, ended up at Strata, versus what you're ending up with here. I know I'm pretty vague on that. We know we've got one waiver anyway, but I'd just like to know, like parking and dumpsters and every comparison that we did at Strata versus here, that you're offering here. I don't
Yeah.
see anything wrong here, but I want to make sure I'm not missing anything.
No,
So you'd like to have the elements pointed out?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a nice summary, yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I think the biggest takeaway is the intention of the end product and the end user, right? It's a very different product. Trash you mentioned, so we did take some lessons on the trash side. So there we've got a big pad, enough space for several dumpsters. But here we did talk to the Board of Health, and in the DRT meeting we did get some feedback. So we brought trash into the building. I think it was you that actually might have suggested that at the Strata hearing. I can't remember.
Can't remember
But we did listen to you. Let's put it that way. So we
Okay.
did bring trash into the building. Board of Health seemed to be happy with that. From our DRT meeting, it seems like we received positive feedback there. We have about 400 square feet allocated right now, but with the redesign, we'll have to just kind of jigger it a little bit.
Yeah.
But we did bring it into the building.
And if you were to come in with a restaurant, I mean, that's obviously more food
Mhm.
and things like that. So I would assume you're probably gonna need an adjustment. You'll need a oil water separator and stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. Carlton's a couple steps ahead of you on that one.
okay,
And we have talked to our trash vendor, so our trash vendor there will be Republic, same as across the street. They've told us that they have a route in the area, so if we need to increase to daily coverage, we could if we needed to.
And can I assume that these will be rentals and are you the type of guy that builds and holds or what?
I am, yep.
You are,
Yep, predominantly everything that I own is in the immediate area, Wakefield, Reading, North Shore. Yep.
okay.
Where is the loading area on the new site plan? I'm sorry to make you go back and flip
Nope.
over there.
It's the same area as the fire truck turning area.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
But that's the type of analysis right there that, you know, I'd like to understand.
I think the trickier thing is it's not so much a chart comparing, it's a
Yeah.
visual. If you see the commercial space at Strata, what we've had to do, because of the way it oriented, you've got some really funky commercial spaces. And funky commercial spaces tend to go dark, right? It tends to be,
You got a couple in the back and it's.
yeah, we've got stairwells and you're very limited on what you can do. You've got stairwells sitting in the middle of spaces. So now you've got this tricky kind of equation of, you know, trying to plan for the future when you really can't, right? You don't know who's gonna be in there and what's gonna happen over time. Tenants term out and new tenants come in and you don't know what they're gonna need for space. So it's super tricky, and I think what Stefano's done a great job here of is making the space very flexible. But what we don't want in town are a bunch of boxes that don't get filled, right, like we've seen over time. And we don't want boxes that are too shallow or have too many columns. So I think what we have here allows for up to 2 spaces. Technically, it's probably best fit for 1 user, which I think is probably gonna be what happens. But across the street, it's super tricky. And so I think less so seeing a chart and maybe more so seeing a visual of how the 2 buildings are distinguished, you know, because ultimately what we're trying to do is create improved outcomes for the community.
Yeah, and I think, just going back to the other building, I think we're looking for, okay, I'm gonna forget here. We had a space for Uber and things like that, drop off and pick up. Drop off for packages and things like that. I don't know what's planned for that. But
Yeah,
it'd be
our
nice,
loading
it'd be
space
nice
here
to
is
understand
massive.
what we've got.
Yeah, our loading space here is massive, so it should actually be even more convenient, because what should actually happen now is somebody like a FedEx truck or an Amazon could pull right into that space when it's not being used. I mean, ultimately, we're designing for fire truck access, but the number of times fire trucks are gonna be at the site is nominal, if any. So right now, what can happen is even our dumpsters, right? In terms of having that trash inside, a dumpster could pull right into that space, empty out the containers, and pull right back out. We have that problem at the Chronicle, right? Trash is inside the building there. We did inside trash at that building. And right now, we created those additional 2 parking spaces after we went through that process with the select board. But right now, the trash company has to pull in to those spaces, basically park, right? Put their flashers on, go inside, open the garage door, bring the barrels out. None of that will happen here.
So speaking of funky commercial spaces, if we can go back to the diagram of the first floor again. I'm not calling this a funky space. I am curious though.
It won't offend me, it'll offend Stefano.
No need to offend anybody. I'm just, so that's a substantial space. It looks like you could do a fair amount with. If it were broken into 2, how would you do that? And then what I'm thinking about is customers who would come into that second space. How would you break that into 2? And then I see where the doors are, but I guess my question is that like a long way to go for people to park and then go over there to go
I don't
all the
think
way
it
out
is.
to the sidewalk on the front on all of that?
I don't think it is, because I think context is scale. So at Strata, our building is roughly, 120 feet long. So if you're parked in one space and you're trying to get to the middle of the building, it's actually a lot farther walk than this.
Yeah.
So here, the nice thing is, and I can tell you this from our experience because we're dealing with the leasing right now, I can't tell you how many people we're getting calls from that want boxes between 800 and 1,200 square feet. Real estate is expensive, right?
Yeah, and they want
these
something that's
operators-
square, right? And this
Yeah.
isn't square either, so how would you,
Well, it's
how
not
would you do
square,
that?
but if you dissect it down the middle, it's actually a great box. And I can say that because I've been a retail operator, I've been in food service, I know, what kind of spaces work well and which ones are gonna be releasable. I think actually these are great boxes. I do believe that this is gonna be a 2,400 square foot single user, but I think Stefano's done a great job of making it flexible because we don't know, right? These buildings are gonna be here longer than I will be. So at the end of the day, we could have a user that, 10 years from now doesn't renew a lease and it gets split in 2. And so we want that flexibility. I think the big takeaway though is that we're hearing what the market wants, right? we're getting the calls, we're getting asked, hey, do you have this? And right now we can't deliver it. And that's a missed opportunity for the community because there's a lot of really cool uses that are calling me. You know, really cool, fun bakeries and food service businesses that right now I can't serve them. And there's no way for me to cut the box appropriately because of the way that space occurs across the street because we've had to make all these accommodations. I mean, we see bike storage on this plan. We talk a lot about mobility, right, and micromobility and getting people to drive their car less, right, create less smog and create less traffic and less trips. But across the street, we couldn't accommodate a bike storage area. And I can't tell you between across the street, projects I've done in abutting towns, even at the Chronicle when we built it, how many times the first question I get is, do you have bike storage? Well, we can't in one breath say we're a community that wants alternative mobility if we don't promote alternative mobility, if we don't make that accessible. So, you know, here, I think, again, Stefano's done a great job of creating that ability. We've got that sidewalk running around the side. You can store your bike and, you know, you're half a mile from the commuter rail in downtown and hopefully go and shop small at all the great businesses down there. So
I am glad to hear that you have learned that people want bike storage. And I'm glad. Actually, one comment I have is just a little pet peeve that I have. It's fabulous to see the bike storage and the bike racks outside. When you place the bike racks, if you're doing the circular kinds, would you make sure they are placed in a way so that you can actually put the bike there and it's not blocking the sidewalk? There was another building that went into town that did the bike racks as we asked, and they're in just a completely useless place. Like you can't actually, I look at them and I was like, how could you attach a bike there and people wouldn't be able to travel on the sidewalk? So do that well. I have another question. The front windows, the ones that are long and vertical and have, I'm just wondering if they open up, not those ones, the front ones.
Right there,
Yeah,
on the right.
they're really pretty. I'm just curious, like, do they open up? How are people who live there, are they able to get fresh air?
On the upper floors,
On those two floors right there, yes.
so those would be operable casement style windows. So either like a crank out or, you know, you could do like a tilt turn.
Okay, great.
What do you have planned for the third story? And do you anticipate being hit for a traffic light because of both buildings going in?
sorry,
I know it's two different areas. What do you have planned for the third story, the deck?
the fourth story.
Fourth story?
Got it, yep.
Well,
Yep.
no, wait, is it fourth? Well, they'll be walking on the roof of the third story. That same thing? Yes, okay.
Yeah, so I think what we've done is we've accomplished two things here, right? We were mindful of the South Main Street design guidelines, which, while they predate the bylaw amendment, what they ultimately state is if you've got a fourth floor, we want to push it back, right? And so what Stefano did is he kind of used that as an opportunity, right? And we've pushed this back substantially, probably a lot more than, I think in Strata we're nowhere near that kind of setback. But again, this is really a lesson from across the street. We have no amenity space. So we don't have, clubhouses and gyms and all that fun stuff that maybe some of the downtown buildings have, or a lot of these newer, larger scale apartment buildings. And so what we've tried to do is create an amenity space, somewhere where you can just kind of get some fresh air. But it's not a separate roof deck. It's not up on the top floor above residents. It's actually on the same floor, so residents can just walk right out.
Okay, and so that's it right there?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. Yep. And it will change.
Deck to the front.
Yep, exactly. And it will change. It'll be a little bit smaller because now that we've had to accommodate the change for the fire department, Stephanos had to do some redesign work, but it looks like we'll still be able to accommodate something. And ultimately what this is just a fresh air space, right? Some of the units don't have decks and they won't have that ability. There's really no other amenity. South Main is kind of locked away. You can't really walk to a park really close. And so we've just tried to be mindful of that.
And will there be vegetation up there of some kind?
I'm sure we'll have planters, but we're not planning any kind of like green roof or anything like that.
I didn't mean green roof, but I meant at least green.
Greenery.
Greenery, yes.
We
Okay.
can paint it green if you want. Okay.
Oh, maybe. What about, again, traffic? I know we got a traffic person here. Going on to South Main Street there, is that going to pose a problem too? I know you can say it's got 38 parking spaces now, it's going to have 39. But this is going to be a lot of movement at one time, I would imagine.
I think I would draw your attention back to the waiver, right? I think if we tried to push to a size that overtaxed the site, maybe, right? But I think what we're doing is we're fitting in with the fabric of what's happening in the neighborhood. We're increasing total commercial space by 600 square feet, but we're delivering much more viable, much more vibrant, much more useful space, right? I think one of the big things to keep in mind, obviously, these developments are not going to be happening in concurrence. They're not going to happen simultaneously. One will happen after the other. So we'll learn a lot in that process as well, right? We've worked with the community before on other construction projects in town, so we're super vigilant and hyper familiar with everybody. But in terms of how much traffic we're going to create, obviously that's above my pay grade. That's what Van Ness is here for. They've done their traffic study, but yeah.
I have one or two other questions and comments. How many EV spaces?
So fire department has just asked that we keep them in a specific spot. We have not allocated a specific number, but I was imagining at least 2.
Okay.
And we
And
have
if
some
tenants
across the
come
street
in
as
and they
well.
have EVs, are you making other spaces EV ready, or is the fire department saying, no, you can't do that?
So
I mean,
they just don't want the EV spaces under the building, under the podium. I think you guys went through this at 348 also. There was questions about that. And so that top left corner is really where they've told us to keep them. So typically what we'll do is we'll run a conduit out there so that we can always, we'll have a pull string in there so we can run additional lines if we need to.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, we do it with all of our projects, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking you have 2 EV spaces out of 39. I mean, is your guess that like more than 10% of the population has plug-in electrics right now or will in the future? They
My
might.
wife and I both drive EVs and we love them and I tell everybody to get one, so.
Right.
hopefully that'll be a good problem to
So
have.
2 would be kind of limiting ultimately.
Yeah,
So I think
I
we
agree.
need to make as many as possible, at least EV ready, right?
Sure.
Okay.
So we'll have eight EV ready spaces.
Okay,
So
that's
That's
better.
what I call
I think they should
Yeah.
all be,
it.
but
The code requirement is 20% EV ready.
I was gonna say stretch code, which we have, I think, is 10 to 20%, not the advanced stretch code, which would require more.
like, is there any reason everything except for the ones under the podium can't be EV ready? You wanna
I
be
don't see
around
why
a long
not.
time, right?
Yeah, I
You
don't
have
see
tenants
why
for a long
not.
time?
Yeah. It's easy enough.
Heather's stretch code.
The-
I mean, it just to me, I say that literally just because it just makes sense, right? You wanna have tenants, they wanna have cars, ultimately more people will have EVs.
And you've got to have it ready for the future. And you don't want to dig up the pavement too many times.
Yeah, the conduit is pretty cheap and it's never gonna be easier to install than
Right.
before the parking lot's in.
Absolutely right.
So you
Right on.
can pipe to them. The EV ready requirement, they have to provide the circuit breakers day one, whether or not there's a charging head. And they need to run the conduit, basically cap it. So EV ready literally means you just have to detach the cap and put the charging head on.
Yeah,
You'd have 8, that could be almost no expense, have the head installed and then conduit line for future
what else does he says, almost no expense? I'm kidding, I'm teasing you. My only other comment is about the waiver and the waiver justification. I I think you're providing good commercial space, let me start there, so they don't give the wrong impression. And I think it's provided, you're providing good square footage. The building to me looks nice. Somehow you're making the site work. I don't think giving the reason that we are keeping an existing business on site passes muster, because that's not happening. It's wonderful that Bay State is moving across the street. My impression is that they might move across the street to that space because they wanted to expand regardless of what we're doing it. So I think we need to, if we're going to give a waiver, we're not keeping that business on site. If we're giving a waiver, we need to describe that in a different way. Because that business is not staying on site.
Yeah, that's fair. I get where you're coming from. I think the tricky thing is this. Bay State they did not engage me in any dialogue before I purchased this land.
Okay.
So there was no discussion of them. Their lease was ending at December 31st. And as you can see, they've provided their letter. Here's what I would say.
But we're not,
If-
literally, the language is to maintain the current viable businesses on the premises. So I don't wanna belabor it, but finish telling me, but I think I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily disagreeing with the waiver, but I wanna be careful about the reason.
Yeah, and I think Jesse brought it up. It's a bit ambiguous, right? And I think if we start to talk about intentionality and things like that, I think it's a slippery slope. I think ultimately what would probably be the biggest takeaway is that at the end of the day, this is a business that likely would have left. And because Reading and the South Main Corridor does not have viable Class A retail space, we would have lost them, right? It's an impracticality, and I can say this as a retail owner, right? You can't leave a space for a year and a half,
And come
close your
back.
business and come back. It's
That's
just not possible. And you certainly can't move it and then come back. And that's gonna be true for anyone that has any kind of build out expense, right? And we can see this because I remember before the bylaw passed and I was sitting here in this room and Nick Safina said to me, this retail on Main Street doesn't need more insurance offices, more real estate agents and that kind of stuff. Well, those are the only folks that are going to be able to leave and come back, right? And you'd argue, do they really need retail exposure? They need retail space. So if we want to keep businesses in Reading, we want to have success stories about their growth, we want to see a great business like Bay State come back and expand and improve patient outcomes, this is a viable way to do it. And so I would say that I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? I do, absolutely. But what we've done is we've found a creative way to interpret this thing in a way that's meaningful, in a way that stays true to, I think, what the community wants. And we can debate, right? But ultimately, we're talking about economic development plan, we're talking about housing plan, we're talking about the big picture, right? And so I think what we're actually doing is we're getting great outcomes across the board. We're getting this great business to expand, and now we're creating room for new businesses, right? Which is fantastic. And I can tell you from the calls I'm getting, these businesses that are trying to come into our town, there's a lot of them. There is surprising interest. Like I actually have been overwhelmed by the amount of hits I'm getting. The trouble is giving them the space, having the right fit, having the right tenant fit up, and reaching those inflection points that make sense for them. And I think that by doing this, we're going to be able to do that. I think it's going to be really interesting, and I think it's going to be a big win, right? So I agree with you 100%. I think that ultimately we're finding a creative way to create outcomes.
Any other questions from the commission?
I just asked so
Or
everybody's
from staff,
aware.
of course, and to see if there are people online. Oh, Andrew has his hand up,
Yeah.
and then we'll go to members of the public. Andrew, please go ahead, McLaughlin.
Thank you. So I think the waiver is more so in order to maintain the parking to achieve the residents and the commercial space. That's the reason why you're downgrading the commercial space. Am I correct?
No, I don't agree with that representation. No, I don't think so. The reason we're asking for a waiver is to improve the design. We're holding the same exact parking, and in part, you just have to keep in mind that we're limited on what we can do in terms of the parking. We're basically stuck with the existing lines that are in the lot today.
But you're expanding the residential an awful lot, and that's where Andrew, I kind of think I see what you're saying, where the reason the commercial has to be less than 25% is because you're adding a substantial amount of residential, and the parking now needs to also accommodate all of the new residents that will live in the residential.
If we design this with the orientation of the parking lot, we'd end up with what we ended up with at Strata, which is 80-foot deep boxes, and nobody wants 80-foot deep boxes.
So it's about design and about accommodating parking for for the residential part of the mixed use.
It is, yeah, certainly. It's about creating a viable project that helps move the town forward. You know, at the end of the day, it's not viable to have 80-foot boxes.
Right.
No, I think we all agree on that.
Did you have other questions, Andrew?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Any questions from the public? Yes, please, come on up. Oh, and that reminded me, I have another question, but you come up first.
So,
Name and address.
Name and
sorry.
address first, please, yes.
Oh, my name is Laurel.
For the record, thank you.
My name is Laurel Britt Webb, and I own 271 Main Street, Pet Companions Bed and Biscuit. That particular property has since 1984 served the Reading community and their dogs. In 2002, it became Pet Companions Bed and Biscuit, and my husband and I purchased it back in 2023. So for almost 3 years we're going on. So I'm here simply just to put on record a few considerations that I just want to make note of, which is we have on average 35 dogs at our facility every day. We are open 24/7. We're not open, sorry. We have dogs on premises 24/7, 365. And we're open from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. So we have dogs in and out in the yards multiple times a day. They bark. So I'm simply here to say that I think the project sounds wonderful. I really do. But there's two considerations, of course. One is our business, which would be, I think, about a year of demolition and then building, which of course will, I think, impact the dogs, especially given that our yards are right next to 281. And also in the future to the residents and the commercial tenants, which is a cafe sounds very nice. I would love to have a big cafe where I didn't have to play Frogger to go and get a cup of coffee. But the reality is that there's going to be a lot of barking. And I just wanted to put out into the community that, again, for 42 years, there's been dogs there. And so I'm just highly concerned about what could happen to us as a business and also for the people who might move in without knowledge of what actually goes on next door. So that's it. Other than that,
Laurel, your property's to the right.
yes, it's to the right. Left?
Page
To the left of that
To the
version,
Yes,
right?
left.
Image, yeah.
I am the white fence in the
Okay.
images. So I think that is what I wanted to just put out into the town universe. So thank you.
I think that's really good information to get out there and get out there for the developers. 'Cause
Yeah.
we want all businesses to be viable and stay also.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
We've
Thank you.
spoken,
Yeah,
we've spoken,
we
but I
met
wanted
back
to
in
make sure it
November.
was on record
Yep.
that I have concerns.
Okay,
Yeah, not about the design or
Yeah,
all that,
absolutely.
but
yeah, absolutely.
we want dog-friendly people. That actually made me realize I have another question. Somewhere in a presentation, it was mentioned that you would take down the fencing,
So only perfectos.
perfectos, okay.
Yeah, Laurel's fence stays because she needs that to keep
It
the
was
dogs
that
out.
business in particular, and I said, oh, really?
Yeah, right now the site, we haven't seen the picture, but the site is mounted, so it sits up high, kind of
Yeah.
perched over perfectos. We're basically bringing it down and just helping it better connect. I would assimilate it to like basically what happened with McDonald's and Chase in downtown, where there's better connection.
Oh, yeah, so it won't be elevated anymore? You're going to bring
Right.
it down to the same level so people can walk from one place to
Exactly,
the
and we
other?
made this same investment at Strata across the street. We had the same problem there.
Okay,
And we spent probably about $250,000 hauling dirt out of there to get it down to street grade so it engages.
But you sold the dirt.
Excuse me?
You sold the dirt. No,
I
don't
didn't-
worry about it.
I didn't sell anything.
I'm just making a
If a contractor made money off my dirt, that's his problem.
Okay, I'm sure he did, or she did.
so I think you have our input. You're going to conservation, talking to the fire department.
I think fire, we've pretty much resolved, I believe.
Okay.
Have they sent you guys an update?
They didn't send anything. I did talk to the chief. They seem more confident in this design. We'll look to request maybe
Okay.
a formal memo from them. We'll get the engineering memo as
Yeah,
well.
we held a separate Zoom meeting with them after the DRT, so.
Okay, and it looks like there's another, was there anything
Yeah,
hand
there was
raised
another
online?
And reasons.
Yeah.
Did you have a comment online, please?
Yes, I live at, my name is Ken, I live on Pyville Ave. I just have a question about the parking.
Okay, go ahead, shoot.
So the current parking situation on the current building has 38 parking spots?
Yes, right?
Am I correct in thinking that those are all full-sized parking spots
Not necessarily, no.
in the current space?
The answer is not necessarily no. I can't tell if you can.
Okay. Well, my point of action or questioning is that the new building will have the 30% compact parking, which is about 11 spots. So you think you're getting a net positive of one spot but are you really? Because not everybody drives a compact vehicle.
Point well taken. This does meet our zoning requirements for parking and compact allowance, right?
Yep, and it is something we could have looked to ask from the property management docs and things. The management of compact spaces and lease.
And we did provide a management plan for parking, but we'll.
So how do you manage that when you're talking to, did you say it's gonna be rented or condos?
Rentals, yeah.
So rentals, do you tell people you have a compact spot and that's it? Sorry if you
All
drive a
parking for
truck? Okay.
residential is assigned in their lease, so they know exactly which space number, and all of the spaces will be allocated. So they'll be marked residential and numbered all the way through the parking lot the same way as across the street, yeah.
And so people renting will know if they have a compact spot.
Yeah, yep, exactly, yeah, we coordinate that with them. And we're finding in most communities around here, frankly, like in Wakefield, we have a building that's almost entirely all 2 bedrooms plus dens, and everybody in the building has 1 car.
Okay.
Every unit has 1 car. It just seems to be pretty common now.
Thank you, Ken, for your comment. Anything else?
Yeah, I got another question about the fire truck not being able. If there's a delivery truck in that turnaround spot, the fire truck will not be able to use that spot to turn around in.
Is that question? Asking?
I guess that's true. I guess I would
So,
also hope
yeah.
that in practicality, if something is happening where a fire truck needs to come, whoever is responsible for that delivery truck on site would get out of the way.
Yeah, and keep in mind, just to make sure we're grounding this in context, fire department's questions were relative to their safety in pulling out onto Main Street. What they didn't want was to have to back into Main Street in difficult conditions, let's say snow, rain, dark, it was not a concern of we can't get in and out. The previous site plan did allow for a fire truck to turn and get out. They were just concerned about the limited viability of them having to go and back out. So we just addressed that. It's
So
not a
let's
matter
say
of-
hypothetically, so the hatch place isn't necessarily where the fire truck has to park, it's where it needs to get
Correct.
turned around. So a fire
Exactly.
truck comes in, hopefully they take care of the issue and the building's not burning down, and then they need to get out of there. They would have enough time, if that space were occupied by a delivery truck, it's small enough to figure out what's going on, get the person to move and turn around.
Exactly, and from just a square footage standpoint, what we've hatched out is probably 3 times the size of a normal loading space. So there's ample space there.
And just to note, the drive aisle is 4 feet wider than across the street to accommodate additional fire truck movements like that. So it
4
was
feet wider
22
than
feet
across the
across the street, is 26 feet wide here.
Okay,
And that was something that we made a concession to the fire department on.
okay. It's good to pay attention to the fire department. Ken, anything else?
Yeah, I got one more point of questioning more for the board. Would this project have been allowed prior to the MBTA zoning?
Yes, it absolutely would. It is the zoning for this stretch has existed since
2019, I think.
2019.
Yep.
And there are guidelines, we have South Main Street guidelines, which admittedly are a little hard to find online right now, but if you go to the planning division section under forms and applications, it's where you can find the guidelines for a few areas of town, and these have existed longer than I've been on CPDC.
Okay, and lastly, I think it's only a matter of time before the entire South Main Street corridor is a series of these, this type of building. So if that's what the board desires, that's what we're gonna get.
Well, and
I'm not in favor of it myself.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I know we also did hear loud and clear during the MBTA communities thing that communities process that people didn't want more high rises, and that has actually, I know, informed some of our decisions. At the same time, the zoning and the guidelines that allow for this design have existed for a while. And they all did go through a public process.
I think it's also important to note that South Main is mostly fragmented lots. The likelihood of, a slew of these types of it's been 7 years and we've got one project breaking ground, that's it. And that 7 years, COVID aside, was basically a boom time for real estate. So if that was gonna happen, it would have happened as soon as that bylaw got signed off.
Yeah, I think we had another project come through also, didn't we?
Yeah, I just meant the first one that's broken ground,
Yeah.
so this will be the third one.
Yeah.
3 and 7 years is not,
But I don't want to argue your point, Ken. It's a point well taken, and it did go through a lot of community visioning. And if there's any suggestions you have on how to improve it, we'd certainly love to hear them.
All right, thank you.
Any
It's
other
like somebody's
comments
got a
from
raised
here or
hand up
online?
there, or is that?
That's Ken, yeah.
That's Ken, okay.
Not seeing others.
Okay, so I think you heard our feedback. Had some questions, had some thoughts, about some relatively minor stuff. It does seem like there's the question about, the surface water quality zone that really needs to be sorted out, and I'm assuming that will be sorted out with conservation as well. I might suggest that you come back maybe even after you've been to conservation in case the site plan changes any further, if that sounds about right to you. Does that sound right to you guys?
Yes,
Close to me.
yep, that sounds.
I think Chuck's feedback at the DRT was basically he just didn't want us to push the existing lines. So I don't foresee any significant issues unless Carlton does. But I think his feedback's, we've already made the changes that he basically recommended, which was not to have parking in those areas. So I don't believe there's gonna be anything significant, but we will certainly come back after we've got some feedback.
Yeah, and
Just
then
to
we'll,
give you a sense of where he
Okay.
was at during the meeting. Yeah.
that's great, and I apologize if this is already in our documents, it may not have, it wouldn't have arrived before today, I think, but we'll need the standard affirmation that the public safety is good with this and everything. So we could propose to continue this hearing to the next meeting if you like.
I'll propose that this matter be continued to,
March 9th.
will you have it? Will you be before the Conservation Commission before?
I believe conservation meets bi-weekly, right?
Yeah, Wednesdays.
Yeah, so probably, yeah. If we run into an issue, we'll reach out to Lydia and Andrew, I suppose.
Okay. To the next meeting, which would be in March.
March 9th, right? Do I hear a second? I guess I'll second, I'm here. I'll second it, and then I'll take, do we have it? We have enough, we have
Yes,
just enough for a roll
just-
call vote.
Mhm.
And Hillary's recused, so I'll start with Andrew.
Yes.
Yes,
Tom, yes.
alrighty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, also at 7:30, we have a Pleasant Street Center land use discussion on the agenda. This must be why you're here, Jane.
Yes, ma'am.
What would you like to discuss?
Katie Gabriella, I'm joined by Katie Gabriella tonight. She is our Director of Operations. And in her role, she is in charge of risk management, communications, and procurement. We are here with our procurement hats on. I shall share the podium with you, Madame. Thank you. And so this is a very brief few slides where we'll take you through what the town is looking to do. And we're not looking for a vote, we are looking for feedback from CPDC about your ideas individually, what the town might wanna do with the Pleasant Street Center, we'll capture that.
Okay.
There's no monopoly on good ideas. This is the third time we've done this presentation tonight.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, tonight, so it's a science. Council on Aging, Recreation Committee, and CPDC. We've also been to.
Are we all here tonight? You're just like going from room to
And there's
room?
someone next door too in general comments.
Council on Aging was down at
Okay.
the Pleasant Street Center. We were there, we were in the building, as it were. So yes, we've been to historic, we've been to school committee, housing authority, and FinCom last week. So we're trying to wrap it up, but it's nice to be able to go around and talk to the different boards, committees, and commissions. So
That's great. And just so you know, we have Hillary Mateve and Andrew McLaughlin also.
oh, great, fantastic. So we think this will be short, but sort of a nice visioning session for you folks. Olivia, there we go. So as you may know, the Pleasant Tree Center was built in 1883. It was our first municipal building. The finished living area is 4,300 square feet. We did a commercial appraisal last year. And folks didn't love these numbers, but this is what we have to work with right now. And so that appraisal came in at $965,000 if we were to sell it. And $72,000 in net operating income if we were to lease it. That's annual. The Finance Committee asked what were the operating costs, and if memory serves, it was about $70,000 per year. I have to confirm that with Joe Huggins. So about $140,000 gross in income, but 72 is the net. The site is too small for housing unless we were to gift it to the Housing Authority. That's our understanding. So maybe you guys will have some thought on it. Olivia's shaking. Yeah, she's like, yes. We did talk to the Housing Authority. They have some interest in it, but I don't know if they would want to take on that kind of work. It's on the Massachusetts Historic Registry and the National Register, and as such, it does have a preservation restriction on it right now for interior and exterior. Our Historic Commission has expressed an interest in maybe revisiting that preservation agreement and seeing if we can have local control, because right now the control is at the state level. So that was done in 1993 when the building underwent its last rounds of renovations to become the Pleasant Street Center. Next slide, please. Yes, so we have a hand
Andrew
raised.
has his hand up. Would you like questions as we go along, or when we're
That's
done?
fine. We can take, this is a conversation.
Andrew, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Andrew McLaughlin, I mean. You too, Andrew.
Thank you. It says limited changes to interior and exterior. What points of the interior are limited? Is that just the main entry in the first floor, or?
I believe it extends to the full interior. It's a little nebulous from my understanding that it says significant changes. It is not clear to me what constitutes significant versus not significant, but I'm under the impression that it extends to the whole interior of the building.
Okay, thank you.
We don't want to let this necessarily restrict our thinking right now. We'll cross the bridge when we
Deal
get
with
to
it if we need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And we probably will, but there's gonna be all kinds of different parties involved as we go further into this process. Right now, we're just trying to capture what is the appetite for the community for what this place could be. And I think I said this earlier, there's no monopoly on good ideas. So through your work and your volunteerism for the community, you may have interesting insights. Did I say that already tonight?
You sure did.
In this meeting?
In this meeting.
I've said it so many times, I don't know when I've said it.
It's a good
Next
saying.
slide, please.
It's a good one.
It is a good one.
So here, just to dive a little bit deeper into potential uses. So as Jane had mentioned, no, I'm not sure if you had
Nobody
mentioned
knows.
it or not.
Yeah.
One option is certainly to sell the property. We saw the commercial appraisal on the preceding slide. As Jane did mention, it could be gifted to the Housing Authority, potentially to create affordable units. We could keep it for future town use. And over on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see in green some of the options for that. Potential office space, educational space, storage, always something that is a hot commodity for town hall. Or we could lease it to a for-profit or a nonprofit. And over on the left-hand side, you'll see some examples of that, along with some of the commercial square footage rental we might expect to see. Next slide, please.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Question. There it says commercial lease about a little over 96,000 a year. I thought the last slide said 72,000 a year.
Yes, we have a little discrepancy there.
Okay, so I guess maybe that's just a noticing for now. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily inclined to lease it to a nonprofit because that doesn't give anything back to the town, except for the lease. But it's
Let
just a
us, we're
thought.
gonna go a little further.
No, I know, that's
We're gonna go
okay.
a little further. Have you seen this already?
No, I have not.
Because I don't know if you know, we've been
think
going
there are
over.
nonprofits that can give back to the community. I'll prepare a counterpoint to
Or
that.
pay,
when we
and they
get
can
there.
pay rent, yeah.
So just quickly, some.
Well, pay rent, I said.
Sure. Some examples that we've seen in other communities of kind of nonprofit partnership like this, the Inspire Cafe in Wakefield and the Breaking Grounds Cafe in Peabody, both food service examples, both provide employment opportunities for individuals with diverse needs. Breaking Grounds in Peabody in particular was created by Northeast Arc and supports other local restaurants. And then on the next slide, you can see two examples, one from Natick and one from Newburyport, of repurposed spaces very similar to the Pleasant Street Center, especially looking at Natick, certainly a former firehouse there also. These have both been repurposed to art centers. So performance venues that include theater, musical performance space, potential movie screenings, gallery space, et cetera. In both of these instances, this was more of the sale model. So neither Natick nor Newburyport are operating these centers, but they were both sold. And I'm not 100% sure if it was included in the RFP that preference was given to this type of environment. But these are both great examples of these types of spaces in these two communities. And then on the next slide, Jane will walk us through some of the procurement related process.
Because Massachusetts can't make anything easy. We have some procurement requirements, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this roadshow. So we can get an appetite for what the town wants to do and then, put ourselves in the best position. So with the lease of the sale of the property, the town must engage in a competitive solicitation. One of the nonprofit uses that has already been expressed to the select board is the food pantry has come before the select board twice to talk about their interest in this property. For their use. So while the town has to solicit a competitive solicitation, that's redundant, we have flexibility in how we can handle it. And so depending on how we structure an RFP, we can indicate that we would give more weight or that we would favor like a local nonprofit, something along those lines. So we can structure it if there's an appetite there. The select board may lease the Pleasant Street Center building. And we can do it as a multi-use too. So we can say, okay, it's this entity on the first floor and maybe the basement, but then a different organization on the top floor. But the lease does not include the use of the land or the parking lot on the site. If we want to lease that with the parking lot for exclusive use, that has to go to town meeting. So the select board can't just lease out the parking lot, town meeting gets to decide. So you could lease the building and leave the parking lot as a municipal lot, and the tenants can use that lot, but they don't have exclusive rights. So these are just things to keep in mind. And then when our initial conversation with the select board before we came on the roadshow was that they were thinking a lease would be preferable versus selling it, because we can't replicate the space in that building for that cost, at all. So there's been a sense of let's hold on to it. Other committees have said you should sell it and get as much money as you can for it, or if you lease it, it should pay for itself at the minimum. And so these are all good things. Next slide, I think it's the last one. There it is.
Discuss.
So this is for you. This is where we're going to capture what your sense is.
I like the building. But the building is not functional on the inside. So exterior, to me, that would be the part that would be preserved. And I suppose the question would be, I have a hunch you cannot lease it to a nonprofit for what you could lease it to a profit for.
Probably.
So, and I'd like to see the town get the most money for it, and I'd like to see it continue to improve the town center, whatever that means.
And Andrew or Hillary, do you have ideas, comments, or suggestions? The quietness up there.
Sorry.
Is the parking lot included in the sale?
Then it
yeah,
goes
you
to a
could-
vote.
Yeah, that would also go to town.
In that appraisal?
Yes, it was,
Okay.
the whole parcel.
Because the parking is valuable.
Yes, sure.
Hillary, you sounded like you were gonna say something else.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it would be a shame to lose municipal property. And I do think that, you know, maintaining that as part of our community stock is important. And I would vote for the rental income, or I would encourage that we, you know, either rental or a worthy nonprofit, I think would be a great place for that.
I second Hillary on that.
I kind of third. I will add, I do think it's a shame to get rid of municipal property. I also agree with whoever maybe said in previous committees that if we rent it, it should cover its operating costs, that the town shouldn't be necessarily subsidizing that unless it was for a town purpose that everybody felt like this is something we don't have space for, so we should subsidize it there. I will also add that for as long as I've lived in Reading, which is somehow become a very long time, I have thought that it would be a fabulous art center. And so, and I also
Hearing a lot of that.
yeah, it looks like it, right? It looks like the place in Newburyport. It looks like you could do, and I know we do have like one or I think two playhouses here already. So maybe there's, I don't know if there's the market for that, but so I was also, I don't know, surprised or kind of bummed to hear that in Natick and Newburyport, those were sales to have that be an art center, which maybe conflicts with my preference for let's hold on to the building. But maybe there could be something worked out. And of course, I value the food pantry and I want them to find a home. But I think that that's a thing that we don't really have yet in Reading is a hip, cool place for arts.
How do you go about, let's say nobody really knows, but how do you go about offering the property for sale / lease, profit, nonprofit? How do you go about advertising for that type of thing?
She's our procurement person now.
It's a great question. So the state mandates the specific ways in which we must advertise.
Okay.
So that is kind of an easy to answer question. We would advertise in the paper. It would go on certain marketplace-like sites that the state runs and maintains. It would be posted by the town clerk here. And from our understanding from a procurement standpoint, we are either a sale or lease. We do have the flexibility in kind of dictating the type of tenant or purchaser we would give preference to. That's not to say that any purchaser or tenant could not submit for it.
Right.
But we would be able to kind of create a weighted criteria system in which we could kind of judge how folks fall into those buckets. And if it was a developer situation or a sales situation, the circumstances in which we would react favorably to those types of things.
And could you pull it back if there was no decent offer?
Certainly.
Yeah, we can cancel the solicitation.
Cancel.
Every procurement we put out has, that kind of out ramp for us at the discretion of the town manager.
Or assistant town manager?
The manager is in charge, sir.
Okay. Andrew, you.
Just only to add to like the sales piece too, it's something of consideration on the zoning, which we've talked about. Like it's in the A40 zone, it doesn't meet multifamily use requirements and lot size, but there's also very limited commercial uses allowed there beyond like a civic center. And so that just would need to be of consider if there was like a coffee shop that was for sale or an performing arts that wanted for sale, buy and manage. Somehow we'd have to work around that
So you
zoning.
say it's not currently allowed?
Civic center is allowed, which I think you could probably
Arts are
argue in many ways, yeah.
Have a lot of civic value.
But if it was more of like a retail shop or something, like just of consideration with town meeting processes and things like,
Yeah.
we'd probably change that too, and so.
So I realize like my comments may be kind of random and not like stringing together and may sometimes be conflicting, but
Okay.
overall, I'm also torn by the fact, I will just lay out there that we need affordable housing. And so with this on there, that yes, we could sell this for affordable housing. It's a unique building, and I would love for it to ultimately go to a relatively unique purpose. Which to me doesn't mean just putting housing in there.
Well, back on your housing comment, the one thing I am concerned about is the age of the building and the cost of maintenance.
Yep.
But putting that aside, you could get businesses that could allow the operators of those businesses to reside inside
Yeah,
that might conceivably be affordable too.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
artist lofts. We're gonna have
Right.
artist
You
lofts
could,
in Reading.
you could, yes, you could have something like
Yeah,
that.
woodworking shops. I don't know. It could be an art. It could be a performing arts center. But could it also? I hadn't thought of that. But could it also be like studio space that would be open to the public on occasion or something even different? I don't know how much demand there is for that kind of space in Reading, but still, and we can think broadly about it.
Exactly.
I've also heard teen type center as another use floated around town. It's a fun place to bring kids because it's a pretty cool, funky space, as Heather keeps saying. So
I would be on board with something like that too. Andrew has his hand. Now we're really going. Andrew, you got your hand up.
Yeah, or even, sorry, or even something like the Boys or Girls Club. I don't know if that would fit the
Yeah,
business requirement or not.
While I dwelled on my arts thing, there is, I will agree with both of you that we have a lot of spaces for kids to go when it's decent weather outside, but not a lot of places for kids to go and convene other times. And so we do kind of lack a youth-oriented center. Actually, not kind of, we very much lack a place like that.
Well, I'm gonna go back to your idea again. I'm thinking that we might be able to fill out some, I can't remember what the second floor looks like now. Some of the upper levels for apartment type of people that operate businesses that are below.
Maybe, yeah.
Whether it's food pantry or whatever. I like the idea of arts and crafts, if we can get it. I've seen that work in other places, Somerville. I can't remember how to get there now, but they have like a factory building that's all arts and crafts. But those are my thoughts.
Are we helping?
Yeah, this is great.
Are we hurting?
Not at all.
But I think it would be important to find out what's the maintenance likely to be.
So the building is up to code right now. It's fully sprinklered, has an elevator, it has an HVAC system. It does flood from time to time, it's problematic. It has
From the floor or from the ceiling?
from outside into the basement.
Okay.
Yep. There is sometimes a smell of uncombusted gas, which is, it's very,
Methane.
it's unpleasant. From the HVAC system that's been problematic for years, and facilities has done everything they can to address that. So it's a recurring smell issue that came up during the feasibility study for recal.
But
So
one of the things that might be good or bad for an art place would be, this is gonna sound stupid, which way the windows are facing. You know, for painters and
The
things
light.
like, the light, yeah. And that might sell it or can it.
And I was thinking arts, like performing arts, or yeah.
yeah, it could be a great spot where you could have live music, small chamber music venue. You could have singing, open mic night for young people,
Open mic night for
poetry
bands for-
slam, stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Snaps. What's that? I'm not gonna say it, not gonna say it. Nobody wants to hear
Oh, come
my
on,
word.
say it.
Half an AM. He made me say it. That's one of the ideas,
It's a wonderful word.
right?
It is a wonderful word.
Thank you for that.
But what's in
I
the
like the validation.
what's in the tower there? I've never been up in the tower.
Well, that's where we keep the ghosts. Could be Ghostbusters. We do that.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's up there.
Okay.
Someone probably knows.
It could be my office,
Someone
actually.
knows.
I think,
So why
It
do
was
we
a
not
bell
have a
tower.
haunted house there while it's vacant?
Great question.
I mean, that's
It's not vacant yet, but
It could happen. It could happen.
When it's vacant?
raise some funds for repairs perhaps.
I haven't heard of any.
A fundraiser
ghost-
for the town?
Yeah, so it's a really cool building. It deserves a renewed life. And you know, whatever the town wants to do, we will do our best to make sure it happens. So
Yeah,
everybody in this room, all staff are involved in this one, so.
Yeah, I just think that the parking is very significant. You know, because there are a lot of places that don't have parking.
No, I think it's got pros and cons and you know, creative people can come up with, you know, interesting things to do. There's some restrictions, and so we have to deal with that, and you know, we can work around it. So yeah. We're with it. Oh, thank you very much. So we are taking this information and we will bring it back to select board. We're also gonna do an online survey for the community.
Oh, good.
So that everybody can weigh in, and if anybody on this board has any ideas later, I always do, you feel free to email myself or Katie, or just give us a call and we'll capture that as well.
I was going to note that a teen center is perfect because not all the teens can drive yet. So the parking.
When you said that, Hillary, it's like, I love that, this is one of the many things I love about Reading. I love that Reading, I mean, not everybody can walk to downtown, but I love that, I guess it's Fridays now, not Wednesdays anymore, but I love that teens come down to our town center. I'm sure the people who are trying to shop at CVS don't always love that, but I love that they gather and they roam, and it is in a great location to have something that can be a place for teens also. I'll endorse that.
I'll give the building another asset. They've got some nice outdoor seating areas.
Yep.
So I mean, like coffee shop and stuff like that could be part of it.
Band practice space.
Yeah, definitely.
There's some soundproofing.
All out the windows, but yes.
There's a basement, there's a basement down there, you know?
And I've
The
been,
jail cell.
I've been in the basement. It's
The jail cell?
the pool room.
Oh, yeah.
There's
But-
pool down there?
Oh, yeah.
There's one pool table that's
See?
almost
Yeah,
impossible.
yeah, you already
gotta get
had
the
half the
short, you hit your stick right up against the wall every time.
Real short.
Get the real short stick in there.
Yeah, there is a short stick that's about like yay long for the walls. But it's got some attributes to it. The question is, maybe it needs to be for a multiple use type of thing.
The Historic Commission expressed some interest in document storage and being able to showcase some of their original
Historic documents?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
from
could,
time to
I
time.
could see something like that there too.
We have a storage room downstairs right now for them.
Huh.
It's not great display space
Downstairs?
here in this building,
Oh, okay.
locked away. Okay.
Hillary, Andrew, anything else? I want to be sure that we're capturing anything else you want to reinforce? Okay, that's
Thank you
fine.
for bringing us and sharing with us.
Thank you for having us tonight. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Do you have a fourth meeting to go to?
No, I got out of the fourth one.
There really should be a haunted house there.
That is a good idea.
Okay, anyhow, from the Pleasant Street Center now to Eastern Gateway, our next, we have this, thank you. We've got Eastern Gateway thoughts and preliminary considerations. Are you here to present on that?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a way for me to advance slides, or is it?
I think I'm stuck doing it
Alright, no
today. So as we talked last month, and start to build the building blocks going forward for the Eastern Gateway, which there's been some expressed interest towards advancing and continuing this effort. We recommended, and you guys recommended as well, bringing in project architect Michael Wang, who is here tonight, to help us steer along this conversation of zoning and how we can translate what we've heard to date into future zoning language. So Mike, Olivia, and I have been discussing over and over again what's the good starting point, where's the best starting frame for zoning, especially in an area in a context like this district, and its unique abilities but also challenges that come with it. And so that's what we wanted to start with tonight, that Mike will probably share some of the finer details on. And then it can really just be an open discussion of how to consider some ongoing action items and what you would like to see and be most helpful to you guys as we try to press forward. So
Terrific, thank you. And Andrew, can I ask, do we have anybody else online, or is it just Andrew and Hillary?
right now, I believe there was another public member or two.
I realize I forgot, I should have
We
opened it to see
have
if they had ideas to
Two
give
board
to
members and two public members.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, take it away. I know it's getting late, but
Thank you for staying so long tonight. Yeah.
no worries whatsoever. So again, I'm Michael Wang with Foreman Place. It's a small architecture and planning firm based in Newton. And I've had the pleasure of working with Andrew and Olivia and the steering committee and others for the past year and a half or so on the district. And if you want to go to the next one. So I think the goal, as Andrew was sort of alluding to for tonight, is to just give you a general project update on how things have progressed over the last year and a half. And as we move to this next phase of translating the sort of the goals and visions for the district into zoning and potentially design guidelines as well. We'll step back for a second and look at some lot metrics as a way of informing zoning, because zoning needs to work not only if there's a grand vision for developing the whole district as one master plan, as you'll see examples of, but also if individual parcels are developed and it needs to work on both scales. And then we can finish off with some ideas about process and timeline and next steps from here forward as we work towards the fall 26th town meeting. I guess, Andrew, that's the target currently?
Absolutely, if confidence feels right. So.
Okay.
So I'm not sure have you guys been to any of the community meetings, or have?
I have not been able to
Okay.
I have not been able to get to any, but I've been kind of
Okay.
following.
Well, I'll keep this sort of high level, but to start here, just to review, again, you're all familiar with the district, and roughly 70 acres are what we've been looking at, 40 of which or so are about on the north side of the commuter rail track. And next one, Andrew. And so, this area in different forms has been studied multiple times, previous studies over the years. In 2019, there was a study done by Gamble and Associates that looked primarily at the south side, including the RMLD site, DPW, et cetera. And a lot of the goals that were established during that period have interestingly continued on as we've expanded to the north. I think what's interesting to see here is that this graphic shows the Eastern Gateway District actually going even farther to the north side of Walkersbrook, but we're going to really focus between Walkersbrook and Ash. Some of these ideas about compact mixed-use development, so walkability and connectivity, and activating public spaces are things that we've been carrying forward with us. So next. We started with an open house, community open house in December of 24, and got feedback and confirmation on the key themes that people wanted to see. Again, these ideas of mixed-use development and more dense housing with diverse typologies, that all those issues of walkability and connectivity and open space, again, carrying forward from the earlier studies. But also an interest in making sure that the development patterns and architectural character of the area are cared for in the design guidelines and zoning that we'll hopefully follow. Thanks. Next. So then we had a fall community workshop this past October, and in between those we had a number of other outreach efforts, including surveys and focus group meetings. Anyway, the purpose for the district and the tools for achieving it have continued to evolve and reinforce those earlier themes, and again, trying to ensure that the development patterns are compatible with the Reading context. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, Andrew, so let's keep going forward, but feel free to ask me questions. So the community workshop in October was a very fun event, at least I thought. We had 6 groups, 6 tables, where people were basically given an opportunity to use a kit of parts, basically foam core blocks that were coated with different use typologies, and were given an opportunity to lay out their own master plan on the north side of the tracks. And you see here the results tabulated from the 6 groups in comparison to what our project team has been developing over the last year and a half. And it's interesting to see that the level of density of housing that many groups proposed, as well as the total program, in some cases up to 1.2 million on this northern part of the site, in many cases were much more intense in development than where we've sort of landed as we begin to think about what's contextual for the site. Let's go to the next, please. So key takeaways from that meeting, again, prioritizing dense residential development and mixed use and integrating public amenities as we work towards facilitating the future development opportunities. Let's go to the next one. I'm trying to go through here a little bit quicker. This was a master plan that we presented at that community workshop after everybody had a chance to put forward their own ideas and speak to them. And so this represents about 800,000 square feet of mixed use, and it's been a very iterative process for over a year of scheming here and looking at where certain building typologies are appropriate when you consider the surrounding neighborhoods, Bolton and Washington Street, single family uses, and maybe higher, more intense mixed use blocks like the dark blue ones there, the C-shaped ones that are along the MBTA line is a good place for height, and how do you integrate open space and organize a mix of uses. So this represents about a 0.45 FAR, which I think was a bit of an eye-opener for all of us. It's not as much as we thought potentially. Next.
The FAR stands for?
Floor area ratio. So it's the amount of development based on the size of the site. Yeah. Thank you. Next one. And here's just a visual of a model that we did of that particular plan, showing how you might have some taller buildings, office buildings along Walkersbrook, which in this image is in the foreground, and then deeper onto the site, you see that actually in this iteration, 6-story mixed-use buildings with residential above ground floor retail, also some structured parking behind the retail liner, and those are sort of deeper into the site along the tracks and away from the residential neighborhoods. So that's just how that particular plan laid out. So now, just very quickly stepping back, we wanted to just, as we transition to the zoning design guidelines piece and distill down all the feedback we've gotten, we wanted to look a little bit at the lot metrics again for the district. And you can see here the district broken into 4 quadrants, if you will, with the north side, the northwest quadrant up at the top there is about 27.5 acres. That includes the Market Basket and the Stop and Shop. It's everything to the west of New Crossing Street. And then the other parcels there, you can see the parcels on the south side of the tracks, the almost 9 acres that is along Ash Street where RMLD is. And then in the lowest sort of southeast corner, the 19 acres that has the DPW site, medical office building, and the Frame Corporation. So each of these areas having very different characteristics and might suggest different approaches to zoning or sub-districting, but maybe not. So we're going to talk about that further. So next slide, Andrew. So if you break down these two sides into the existing lot sizes, you can see here on the north side, highlighted now, there's quite a range in lot sizes. So you have in the upper left there, the two sites that comprise the Walgreens site today that are about a half acre and 1 acre. And then as you move over to Walkersbrook, you've got parcels that range from maybe 3 acres to 5 acres to 8 acres fronting on Walkersbrook. And then of course you've got the large parcel in the middle there, the One General Way, that's over 20 acres. So you've got quite a range and diversity of lot sizes today. Next one. And whereas if you look at the south side, they're well, certainly all the lots that are close to Ash Street are quite small, and they range from 0.2 acres to getting up to 2.5 or so acres. And the larger ones, there are some larger ones sort of hidden in the back where the DPW is, et cetera. But a very fine grain of lots fronting on Ash Street. Next. And another component to these lots are the issue of common ownership. So you can see here highlighted in the purple, the 3 lots that are owned by RMLD, which make up about 4.5 acres. And then the red lots behind them, which are rear lots, are the Barbas lots. And you can see the medical office building below that, the 20 Pond Meadow, which actually crosses over Pond Meadow Street. It's on both sides there. So that's just an interesting aspect of when you're thinking about aggregation of lots, you already have some of that under common ownership. So next. And then here, just as a reference, is the zoning today. And so you can see you have the industrial underlying zoning, you have the PUD opportunity on top of that. And then up at the very corner there, close to Main Street, you have a little bit of Business A and Business B. That's partly where the Walgreens site is, et cetera. So, but next slide. But all these current zoning opportunities are not really conducive to the vision that we've been getting feedback and have been developing. And a lot of that has to do with the challenges of mixed use and denser residential uses. And where you can do residential, the PUD has some constraints in terms of you have to be a certain size lot in order to be able to utilize the PUD, which is a good thing in that it incentivizes the aggregation of lots, which is something similar to what we're thinking about for this overlay that we're going to be working on. So next. All right, so again, here is an overall district-wide plan, taking one of the alternatives from the south side and one from the north side. And this is just to give you a sense that this version has about 1.2 million square feet of development across the whole acreage there. And it's about 450 dwelling units across the north and south there accommodated. And these are in both townhouse type structures and in larger multifamily mixed use buildings. And so with the size of that overall district, which includes some wetlands and some open space and all that, you're really only achieving a density of about 8 dwelling units per acre, just as a reference. But that has taken over this entire large district with lots of, like I said, open space and other things impacting the level of density. Next. So what I'm going to do very quickly here is just run through a couple of examples of looking at smaller lots. So just the simple thing of taking that area, that one of those quadrants, that's the area to the west of New Crossing on the north side, you're looking at about 500,000 square feet of that 1.2 million is in that area alone. And that's because That's where some of the taller buildings are, again, the dark blue, mixed-use residential. And so it just, even though that has a considerable wetland component up on at the top of the screen there, and also has the two major open spaces that we were looking to integrate, this is approaching only 10 dwelling units per acre of density. But what we want to allow there is also going to be dependent on what works on smaller sites as well. So Andrew, we got a couple more here on smaller sites. So we're going to look at these 4 sites here very quickly that range from the Walmart site, Walgreens site, it's getting late. The Walgreens site, if Walmart could fit on that, that'd be something, which is about 1.5 acres on Bolton Street there, and a couple of parcels, combined parcels down off Ash, and then the 2 parcels that are combined off of Walker's Brook that get to about 4.5 acres. So next. So we'll quickly run through these. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm happy to elaborate at any time if anybody would like to revisit something here. So this is what we call the triangle lot down on where Ash Street kind of begins to merge with Main Street. And we're showing it's about 2 acres, and we've shown a concept here that test fit that has 65,000 square feet of mixed use and has about 24 dwelling units in the lower of the 2 buildings there that are in a mixed use 3-story building with some ground floor retail. But again, and the other building is a mixed commercial building with retail and office above. Only 2 stories. These buildings are 2 and 3 stories because you're constrained by how much you can accommodate because you have to park it and you have to provide reasonable open space, etc. So we've achieved here about 11.5 dwelling units per acre. That number's starting to creep up a little bit as we look at these smaller sites. And it could be more if that, for example, that office building were also to be a mixed-use residential, you could easily get up to 20 dwelling units per acre. But there's something to think about buildings that are actually on Ash Street and how they relate to the neighborhoods as opposed to buildings that are sort of more rear lots. So let's look at the next one here, because this kind of spans between 2. It has a little bit of Ash Street frontage, and then it also has a bunch of townhouses. So you have a mixed-use building with 24 units plus the townhouses. And now you'll notice it's a 2.5 acre site, so it's pretty comparable to the previous one we were looking at. We're now getting up to about 17 dwelling units per acre. And just to point out, the parcel that's above that to the north that has the 3 dark blue buildings, that's showing 3 3-story multifamily buildings on a relatively tight parcel there. That actually represents almost 40 dwelling units per acre, 37 dwelling units per acre. It doesn't look notably different than the others, but because it's all in a multifamily format, that represents about 37 dwelling units per acre. Let's keep going.
DPW is right down below it though.
It's below the medical office building
Gotcha.
there, yeah. You've cropped the screen a little bit, I think,
Yeah.
but that's okay. All right, just the last 2 on the north side here. This is the Walgreens site, and this is showing, again, being sensitive to the Bolton Street context, largely townhouse development. And I think whatever we end up writing for these edges is going to want to be sort of a lower intensity development, but I think the residential is good there. I am showing 1 retail pad sort of in the most visible spot from Main Street, but you're looking at, again, 16 dwelling units per acre here. If the retail, block there were to also be townhouses or some other, typology, residential typology that's not too intense, you could easily get up to that 20 to 25 dwelling units per acre on a site like this and have it still be, I think, appropriately scaled. Next. The last of these 4 studies is looking at the Walker's Brook frontage that's just to the east of New Crossing Street. This is just the east of Stop and Shop. Today it's a Bertucci's up on the street and a small office building towards on the lower parcel. These 2 parcels have been combined, and we're showing an office building on Walker's Brook. I think there's been some feedback that we don't necessarily want to have residential fronting right on Walker's Brook. It's a more of a commercial way, and it has good visibility for certain uses that like to have, you know, branding and exposure. So, but we're showing a mixed-use 4-story residential building on the bottom part of the site here, and that's getting 90 dwelling units, and on the 4.5 acre lot, approximately, we're in the 20s in terms of the low 20s in terms of our dwelling units per acre here. So that's just as a frame of reference. So I think we're getting close here. Maybe you can go to the next one, Andrew, and expand out, or I don't know, maybe it's too hard for people to see, but this is a diagram that we did, you know, a while ago, but it was as we were beginning to think about those edges of the district, the Walker's Brook, and in terms of and Bolton and Ash, and those with those 3 different colors represent. And often it has to do with abutting a residential neighborhood or fronting on a commercial way, and what might change about what is type of development you're going to allow there. Maybe it's less intense, less height. So it's dimensional criteria issues. It might be also controlling uses. There may be some uses you don't want to allow in these certain zones because of the transition to the neighborhoods. Next. So these are all layers that we're considering as we begin to look through the summary. Now, I'm not going to go through the details here, but suffice to say that we have started to make assumptions or write down thoughts about dimensional criteria. This on the south side, it's showing ideas about height, that maybe you could do 4 floors, you know, in some of the back lots, but as you approach Ash Street and the abutting residential neighborhood, you want to bring down the scale, whether that's 3 floors or you're getting into step backs on the upper floors or things like that. This is just sort of a catalog of some of the criteria that we've begun to explore based on these test fits and the feedback. Next. All right, and then the same for the north side. I'm not going to go into this, but these are zoning goals and everything from addressing parking to integrating open space, and et cetera, et cetera. Next. All right, so that's actually that's the extent of the Reading information I have, but I do have about 4 or 5 more slides if you have the tolerance to listen to them, just to talk a little bit about process and timeline from here forward. Is it okay if I just run through these last couple? Because so this is a project that I recently worked on in Winchester, that actually a bylaw that passed at town meeting in 2024, and it was based on an evolving opportunity area that was identified in the Winchester master plan. And it was looking at the North Main Street corridor, which connects downtown and the commuter rail station, Winchester, up to the Woburn line. And the idea was how to incentivize more dense development and more housing density, particularly close within the half-mile radius of the commuter rail station, which is basically the bottom section of the corridor here. Next. And so we looked at, you know, different typologies and where they might be appropriate, because there's very different conditions as you move up the corridor. You've got proximity to downtown at the base, and then as you move up towards the Woburn line, you're flanked by private residential districts or single-family residential districts, and so there's a lot of concern about how the corridor development would relate to those abutting areas. So we've got, you know, different typologies, from residential townhouses to mixed-use residential that looks like townhouses to transitioning to some medium-size multifamily mixed-use products here. So these are just precedent examples. Next. Almost done. So the point of this is to show you that the transition from the visioning stage to the zoning and design guidelines happened here. I mean, with the feedback that we got, we created this idea of 7 sub-districts so that you could have at the lower end, closer to downtown, higher intensity, and these are the feedback translated, higher intensity mixed use, you know, active streetscapes at the southern end of the corridor, and then going to less dense as you move north. Next. And so we went through a series of charts of site design criteria. Next. And can you do the next one, Andrew? and building design criteria. And this is essentially what the dialogue looks like between the team and the planning board. And we're sort of asking questions back and forth about, well, what happens if you do this amount of open space here? And do you really need to use FAR as a tool if you're controlling height and lot coverage and other variables? So we ended up actually not doing FAR here because we were able to control it with all the other variables, design criteria. So next, so then this ultimately got translated into the bylaw, and this is, it became a warrant at town meeting and passed, and it's broken up by sub-district, and there's a lot of complexity here in terms of incentivizing mixed-use development. It allowed for more height if you have a mixed-use component on the ground floor and that kind of thing. Next. And these ideas about incentives are going to be critical, I think, in the district here to get the kinds of things you want, amenities, open space, et cetera. So the last two slides here are design guidelines being a very important piece of the equation. Next, and these can follow on after the bylaw is passed, but are in a sense working together with the dimensional criteria to kind of create almost like a hybrid form-based code type approach, because you're really are articulating here things about site design in this case, or the last one, Andrew, is ideas about building design and facade transparency, and how do you really get that active streetscape that you're trying to do. So these are just a few pages from that Winchester design guidelines, but it just explains, I hope, that how you transition from a vision that is from an outreach process into actually getting a bylaw formulated and then embellishing it with design guidelines. So I'll stop there. Sorry, long-winded.
That's great, thank you.
Nicely done.
And if I recall, one of the reasons, if not the reason, we wanted to invite you to come talk to us tonight, and thank you very much, is because when we first looked at this, there were some questions of, how does all this zoning work to make what we see on paper ultimately a reality?
Yeah.
So thank you. I have maybe just like a couple of questions and comments, but Tom and Hillary and Andrew McLaughlin, why don't you go first with questions, thoughts, because ultimately where we're going is aiming for some zoning. I think what we're talking about is taking some zoning to town meeting, ideally even as soon as November, to just lay the groundwork for what the town has envisioned ultimately becoming a reality, which could take a long time because there are like grocery stores and things there.
Andrew did ask, where do hotels or motels fall within any of these zones, and if there's future opportunity, or only if they have mixed use? I don't think any of the current designs concepts included hotels, but it's something in terms of a use group, especially where you look to allow your 4, 5-story buildings, if that was something to be allowed, that might be the same area where you say hotels are allowed and possibly be accommodated in that way.
And that's the type of use that might be well served by being, for example, fronting on Walker's Brook as opposed to near the neighborhood.
Correct. That's mainly where I'm talking about. If we can go to the Walker's Brook Drive slide.
And this, I mean, all of this will go through the public process. There's been workshopping, of course, so far, but we would, before going to town meeting, we would.
And to reiterate, this is what we kind of did very different, but at the same time, very similar to what the MBTA, where we are doing zoning and not proposing these buildings currently.
Correct.
That's right.
That's an important distinction. Like, a lot of these concepts are, again, just where do bigger buildings make sense? Do you line New Crossing with retail frontages? Do you transition down to lower residential? And how do you treat that Walker's Brook frontage? And so it's about the uses and the intensities and where they may make sense on site more so than like a full development proposal.
I think we made clear at every public meeting that don't think of this as like a development plan. Think of it as a way of understanding what, like you're just describing, Andrew, what uses and intensity of development is right for different parts of the district, so.
So I have a question about that. So where these plans are designating more in high intensity buildings, are we thinking about making new parcels? How are these how does that relate to the existing parcels? Because I see the lands lines written on top of yes, those they look almost even more subdivided. Is that a true statement or?
Well, a couple of those, for examples, were actually existing parcels. One, like this one Andrew's showing now, is a combination of two parcels under two different owners today. But another example had the Walgreens site had two parcels that were under the same ownership. And the examples on the south side were, often had 3.5 parcels, for example, in one case. And there's so many variables to consider because, maybe you want to extend a road through to connect to Ash Street, and that may create some reparcelization and all that. We can't control the parcelization, but we can make sure that the bylaw works for both smaller scale development or aggregated parcels, and then and as well for the largest parcels like the One General Way. So
yeah, I think that was a lot of the intent of these examples was if the zoning were to allow for say 15 to 20 dwelling units an acre on mixed use, like the Walgreens site, which is shown in the master plan as green space, and we talked about it a lot last meeting. Well, what if that wasn't that park? If you can't get that under common ownership in the future with a large redevelopment, what's it look like by itself? And there still is opportunity for screening, landscape, and other. It's just not a parklet necessarily for something like this, where you might try to incentivize combination of lots with higher density allowances or higher FARs or something like that. We're going 15, 16, up to 20 when you have twice the acres here or something like that. So just the way Winchester kind of
and it's not uncommon, particularly within walking distance of transit nodes, to have 40 to 50 dwelling units per acre, but being sensitive to context, you have to have that in the right location. So that's where there becomes this idea of maybe these buffer zones along some of the transition areas, and an opportunity potentially for higher density at the center of the site, maybe along the tracks and things like that.
I hate to be a naysayer, but the linchpin to this entire thing is Market Basket. It's got 27 acres, so goes it, so goes the development, except, and for that reason, if we were confronted with this proposal, I wouldn't want CPDC to spend a lot of time coming up with new zoning, because I wouldn't want it piecemealed. But I can figure out a way to get some sections worked on that will entice other areas to say, hey, no, wait, can I get something like this too?
But
Now,
you can't.
I can explain it, or I can tell you privately, or Olivia can tell you, because I told it to her, or I can do it now, fast. It's up to you.
So I'm stating the obvious here, but you obviously could not do any of these types of proposals under the current zoning, particularly getting the intensity of the residential.
No, but I'd be willing to zone two areas in particular, right now, differently, to allow for the concept to come through.
And so, question to that, and then I have another question, a comment. I guess my perspective is, if we're going to go to the effort to zone two places, why not zone an entire area to eventually accommodate something like this? That of course, and I guess this is to another question to maybe to Andrew and to others is, okay, my first thing is to Tom, why not? And then in general, I'm envisioning taking this to a public hearing or to town meeting. And how would you describe that overall process of what this means? So we lay out the zoning, we have this mishmash of parcels, one really huge, some medium, some small, a lot of existing businesses, our DPW, Reading Municipal Light. I can imagine a reasonable question, I guess just to be quick and efficient, if somebody's saying, why are we spending time on this? Do we really think the DPW is going to go somewhere? How would you respond to that? This may have come up in the workshop. The people who came to the
Well,
workshops were
RMLD is a good
excited about this, right? Right? They were the ones who were like, yeah, let's, how do you respond to something like that?
So I think aside from even townland, future transitions can be hard to project and change, but when you zone for a whole area, you allow the opportunity for the area to evolve over time. And so whether that was some sort of facilitation of DPW relocation, which I don't know is a realistic just given the limited space in town or not, but zoning over your DPW doesn't necessarily hurt it in any ways. It does add value to it in terms of somebody else potentially doing something with it if you ever wanted that to be the case. But zoning over existing businesses doesn't force them out. Zoning over existing development doesn't force them out in any ways. It just gives opportunity for the future to say, if you wanted to, you could do this. And if leases run out, if tenants don't come back, if something happens to a building, in any number of scenarios, redevelopment can happen. And right now, the existing zoning is not conducive to what we're hearing as the desire for building structure and connections.
And even in just the last year, when the project started, RMLD had a very different vision for how they were planning to utilize the site and stay on the site and expand and do all that, and we did some studies for that. And then that had completely, changed as they've gone through some different changes internally. But so it's hard. I mean, it's hard to know where it's all going to go.
Yeah, and I think to Andrew's point too, and the new growth opportunity and income and sustainment of the district and area is of another consideration for the town. Because new opportunity and new uses and new development do have higher values and bring in that new growth, that can play an important role in the sustainability too of cycles of development in town.
And with growth, I think we want to be explicit and say brings revenue growth.
Does, yep.
Because growth, people growth, anyhow, we want to be clear.
Right, and that growth can be managed, and again, I know some of these numbers might sound shockingly high, but that's likely phased over time, which I think you said earlier, this is not like an all-in-one swoop of all coming online next year if we zoned it that way.
And this is essentially implementing a vision that was laid out a number of years ago. It was, I think, reinforced by a lot of what we heard a lot of people saying during the MBTA community's discussion is why not do something more with this? And our current zoning prevents this. Okay, and now I have a nitty-gritty question. But maybe it's not a nitty question. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to tips and tricks for integrating open space in a mishmash of parcels like this. So for example, and I'm also going to express kind of an opinion. One of the slides that showed the Walgreens tip that had townhomes. There we go. Slide 22. I look at this and I will say, it's like in this area, first of all, I support the idea of doing buffers around and then getting more intense as we go in. In this area, we have a real dearth of parks and open space. So I look at this little parcel and think, townhomes are a great place for young families also. Where would kids play? And I'm wondering what your advice is for integrating open space, like enough space to play in the right number of parcels. Like I noticed on the Winchester one, there was a piece that looked like, oh, there were some fields over there where people could play. How do you go about integrating open space when you have a mishmash of parcels like this?
Yeah. Well, I guess I could say that, different parcel sizes and shapes are more conducive to usable open space. So you could, for example, require a certain percentage of usable open space on parcels that are of a certain scale and a greater percentage of open space on larger parcels that is more likely to have the opportunity for usable open space. And then you can layer on top of that incentives, so that if someone provides literally like a green a green that's usable, they perhaps get another level of residential development that they can do, like a fifth or sixth floor, and if as long as they're in the right location on the site. So there's lots of mechanisms for that, but this particular example, because of the geometries and everything, it's challenging. And then you have to make a decision about whether you want to put constraints on the dimensional qualities of these spaces and how you're calculating open space. So you have to have a minimum dimension of at least 20 feet for an open space to count towards that amount that's required. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
And that gets, I appreciate the language that you're using of usable open space, as opposed to, I think some of what we've done in town has been like, a certain percentage, and we kind of sometimes leave out that qualifier of usable.
Which again, even on
Thank
lot
you.
sizes too, means different things. And so like the general way parcel could accommodate probably a different type of usable open space versus a townhome development might desire in its usable open space.
And that parcel also has the extra large wetland area. So you want to make sure that you're requiring a certain percentage of open space not to be in a wetland area, so that it's
Usable.
You're getting usable. Yeah, there you go.
A test area for Lyme disease.
There you go.
Andrew just did note that he does want to make sure, due to the proximity to the highway, that the Walker's Brook area should be allowed to have the hotels without mixed use. So almost, I think if I'm reading it right, as a separate allowance, but the regulated heights and other are allowed separately from mixed use, because hotels just aren't maybe a mixed use development. So that way we aren't losing the opportunity.
Thanks, Andrew, for writing that down. Yeah,
which I think makes a lot of sense.
me too. Okay, so where do we go from here? I mean, this is zoning is very detailed for something like this. Is November realistic?
That I would have to leave to you guys as we advance. I think we can start putting together some of these program and bylaws considerations.
Part of it, I think, is how intense an outreach component you want as we work through the process. So
I will put forward, I think we need to have an intense, robust attempt at outreach on this. If it's ultimately
I think you're going to get a lot of.
meeting.
I think you're going to get a lot of flack from different areas when you start going into rezoning.
Well, but I think we need to, and some of the outreach has already happened through all the workshops and everything. But there's a portion of there will be a lot of I think information, interpretation, things that, for instance, somebody said tonight of explaining probably multiple times that what you see here, that this isn't a site plan, this is a possibility that an update to our zoning allows in the future 10, 20, 30 years and gives property owners kind of new options. We can frame it as something like that.
Yeah, I'd love to do informational sessions, especially if we do look at specific languages or dimensional controls, and maybe that's varied by parcel sizes or in other ways, and just break it down into here's what this means right now, and basis, like on a 1 to 5 acre parcel, how does that get treated versus a 5 to 10 or 20 plus, or if it's all a wash, like what
So
does-
you can do it that way, or you can also say that you have to be a certain size parcel in order to utilize the overlay,
Right.
which is kind of what the PUD does, but maybe that's a kinder approach, is to just have different criteria based on the size of the parcel. But both of them are hopefully working towards incentivizing the aggregation of parcels.
And that's ultimately what we should discuss. And I suppose it is only February now, so maybe November isn't too far off, but we wanted to do the ADU update also.
Yeah.
What other commission members, what do you all think?
Andrew asked if taken on the initiative, does it affect current grandfathered owners to continue to develop based on their previous zoning, or would that be restricted to new zone and hope for future development? Or would each case obviously come to CPDC? So the latter right now, until zoning is changed, they could certainly use the existing zoning. More than likely, I would anticipate almost anything that could or would happen in that zone would trigger at minimum a site plan review, if not special permits. I think we look at this as almost like an overlay, which means you might not even repeal your existing district requirements, so they could always use that time and time again rather than the overlay allowances. Or you could write it in other ways to change under existing zoning, but
Yeah, so there are some decision points that we have, right? Things like, I also had been envisioning this as an overlay district. I realize now that that may have been a private internal imagining, and we should confirm that with everybody.
I agree, if there's zoning, then it ought to be an overlay.
And so, would it be helpful, I'm just thinking about process here, like, are there certain decisions that you need us to basically make recommendations on and come to agreement on now that allow the rest of the process to start drafting zoning? And can we start laying that process out on kind of a time frame so that we work through our meetings and through a hearing process to get to that?
yeah.
And can you propose a time frame, or is that something you want us to sit here and scratch out, like decision points?
I can propose a general rough blocking time frame.
With the questions of the things that we need to decide, yeah.
With the major implications that I think we just need to consider, and we can consider this almost on a bi-monthly basis, but I think tonight what we'd love to somewhat establish some confidence in is, and I think is the question of does every lot allow for redevelopment? Like as they currently stand, does every minimum lot, if I just bring up maybe this slide here, does every minimum lot size down to 1.5 or even a half acre allow redevelopment, or do we look to establish a minimum lot size that says we want development of certain scale? It might be too soon to answer that, but kind of start in there to make sure that as we run through the parameters and controls that they range appropriately for proposing it, but
Yeah, I mean, you also mentioned, Andrew, a very important first thing to do from a timeline perspective is to start with the town meeting date and then when the warrant's due and how long it's gonna take to draft the warrant, and then sort of work your way back and figure out what's left between now and then.
And do we have enough time now, or are we talking about next
and then
April?
that's where the amount of community engagement is gonna impact whether the fall makes more sense or the next spring. And then I think we can sort of lay out a roadmap of when, what are some of the key decisions and when do we need to make them by?
Yes.
There's some major areas of controls that will ultimately need to be decided. I think those buffer zone treatments and allowances, general use categories and incentives, inclusionary zoning and affordable housing is gonna be a big one because there's all sorts of different approaches to that, and I think really do need to be considered strongly in this area for this level of development in some of these parcel sizes, but that's a whole conversation of like different percentage of area median incomes that you might wish to see or not. And so
I'm not sure we've fully ruled out the benefit of possibly having some sub-districts too.
right, exactly, that's another key element of like, do you allow housing in the entire area or only maybe like on this northwest quadrant, and does it make sense down here? Where we've shown some of those housing allowances too, in mixed use formats, but just kind of putting the nails in some of those pieces.
So that's a good example of a lot of questions. And the idea of having a roadmap to be repetitive, to map out for ourselves over the course of X number of months, the key decisions that we need to consider. I find myself, like 10 o'clock at night, it's like, oh, you ask me, and I'll just weigh in. I don't know if I just want to disagree. I don't know if we're deciding this tonight. Do we rezone every parcel? My inclination, my instinct is yes, but there's another question that should be discussed of, well, again, why wouldn't we? If we don't, do we run the risk of having, I don't know, like a standalone commercial property that is either hampered or is affecting the residential around it, or vice versa, that just kind of doesn't fit? But that's a very important discussion point for us to come to agreement on. And so if we could map out what are the discussion points and when do we talk about them, we can come prepared to the meetings to think about them and discuss them and move through them, and then we'll get through the list of questions.
Yeah.
I think town meeting's gonna have a lot to say and a lot to ask about the logic. What's the driver? Do we want to increase business, commercial taxes, or et cetera, income, or do we want to increase retail? Do we want to increase residential space, but therefore increase, school budget, et cetera, et cetera? I think there's a great job, by the way. You obviously did a ton of work, so start off with that, but I believe we need to kind of narrow it down and bring it to town meeting, and I think you're going to have a lot of questions at town meeting.
Do you all think it's worth, and I don't know if there's time now because it is February already, do you think it's worth bringing an update on this to town meeting as kind of an educational point? Not everybody will have known that the work around the Eastern Gateway is this. There's confusion around Walkersburg Drive, and this may move us, I don't want to go too slowly, but this may move us to say, let's do an update in November and let's bring it to April town meeting. My experience is that you don't catch all the questions that town meeting members will have unless you are at town meeting talking about this.
Agreed.
And this is
Agreed.
big enough that
I think it's
one night we're
important.
never gonna get through it, yeah.
I think you're going to have a lot of feedback from town meeting. If you just show them this, they ask why, or they're going to say why not.
You have to get to the why question, I think, really robustly, yeah.
You certainly don't
Correct.
want the fall to be the first time a lot of people have seen it, so.
Exactly, and like I said, you don't get, we have an elected town meeting, but still, you don't get to all the people unless you're in the auditorium talking to all the people, yeah.
Yeah, let me think, but I don't know if an update at April, other than like, here's just the public feedback we've heard to date.
That's what I'm
and
thinking,
some
the
of
public
next steps.
public feedback that we heard, so we're kind of socializing what this is in the
Right.
first place, yeah.
Yeah.
And it puts it on the radar of the people who only pay attention at town meeting time.
Yeah, let me see if that's a plausible idea or if it ends up being later, like in November or something. We'll work through that. So we'll build some tentative blocks, I think, to say like, if by May's end we secure some of these pieces, and then through summer in in those blocks have those engagement pieces too, and what those might look like. And then as we go, if it's just another update in fall, that's totally fine, and we'll see how it goes. So,
If you aren't presenting anything in April, it may be good if there is a little advertisement or something somehow noting it to town meeting, even if it's not a full-blown presentation, but just saying like, this is what's happening and these are the dates that we are having these meetings.
Yep, yeah, exactly.
Because
I agree.
it will be all about the budget, somewhere in there, There should be like a written blurb in the town meeting warrant, which not everybody reads, so yes, some sort of.
We love a good flyer.
Or
good flyer,
yeah, pop it in the presentation somewhere.
The presentation somewhere, because doesn't the town manager usually do an overall update or something like that?
Something like that.
Put it right in there, at least a slide or two,
Yeah, and publish those dates in the warrant somehow, or like Heather was saying, like in the amendments, the pile of amendments that we pick up, like have it be a pile with a flyer.
Yeah.
If possible.
So have we just created an impossible amount of work for you? Okay.
I think the big thing is to start off from when you need to go where, and then work back.
Yep.
Right.
And tell us every step you've got to make.
Exactly.
That alone may determine.
Because
that alone,
you haven't
is not
convinced
small.
me.
This is not a small thing.
You haven't convinced me that we could do something, and it would be worth doing yet.
Well, I'm convinced.
I've looked at this a lot. I'm not convinced. And they
Do you think you're not convinced that we can't do the zoning, or that anything will ever materialize?
Well, that's a very good point. As I said before, the linchpin is Market Basket, the owner of that, which is a family-run business. And at least according to some of the people I've spoken to, they're not necessarily willing to move as long as Market Basket's there churning in the dollars.
But that whole parcel includes more than
it's
Market
vacant.
Basket, right? Right, so, I guess I still am game for it's certainly not gonna happen if we don't zone to allow it to happen.
The last question that I wrote down here was, are there any pieces which could succeed as a standalone if everything else failed? And I think the answer to that is yes.
I think the answer is
Correct. Walker's Brook Drive.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all got to be coordinated with what's going on in Walker's Brook Drive.
Oh yeah, 100%. But we're talking about this could be 30 years from now.
It might take a while, it might not take a while, you never know. Right, so I think the next steps were roadmap decision points, including some recommendations of when we go really to town meeting.
Yep.
And for that town meeting component to include something in the town manager's report, might be like a cursory overview of feedback and some sort of brochure talking about this, something visual that people can pick up and see. And who to contact for information.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And we want to be sure, the other solid piece of feedback is to, when we get to the right point, include the allowance for hotels along the Walker Brooks Drive. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You were helpful to us.
That's good.
Was our discussion helpful
Yes.
to you? Okay.
Great job. Great job.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thanks for the feedback.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night. Did anybody online have a comment?
Let's see, no hands have come up.
Okay, I
yet.
just get terrible when there's nobody in the room. Yeah.
Well, if they do, they can always write to
They would
you.
have,
Right.
yeah, they can always raise their hand and ask. I just want to make time. Okay. So we have One last agenda item, and it is getting kind of late. This is the public hearing for subdivision rules and regulations and amendments on the fee filing schedule. Is this a public hearing we're doing tonight?
I thought that's what you had asked for,
Okay,
but we can also like, it's to your discretion, you could like open it and continue it and be like, it's late.
let's open it and continue it. We clearly have nobody here to comment on it.
Thanks, Mike, I'll be in touch.
Are you guys game? Do we have a heavy agenda next month?
It's probably.
And did
same
we
as
need to
today.
do the hearing tonight in order to bring these to April town meeting?
So these don't need to go to town meeting because it's a local regulation. So you would open it, discuss it at your leisure, keep continuing it as you needed to. And when you close, we just post it with the town clerk.
Well,
Okay, let's open it and see.
when do we open it?
Yeah,
Why
I
don't we
think we
open
should
it?
open it because
I've
we
got
did
one
do-
idea.
we did
It's
do the
posted.
legal notice, yeah.
Let's open it and let's see if anybody has comments. I'm just getting tired.
Yeah.
Okay.
My only comment is, Andrew, could you get us for the next meeting, assuming we continue it, a list of each item on there that you want us to contemplate before Thursday, before the meeting?
Sure.
In other words, like in the
Specific
next
to this
week.
hearing or?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Entire
what do you want us to consider?
Well, let's open the hearing and then we
Yeah.
can talk about all
Okay.
this, okay? So let's see, would anybody,
I'll move to open the hearing.
okay, well, do we need to read the notice of public hearing into the record?
Probably would just to
Okay,
be safe.
you pull it up, I'll go ahead and read it. Unless, Tom, do you wanna read it?
How long is it?
Short.
Shorter one, yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
go ahead and read it.
Notice is hereby given that under MGL, Chapter 41, Section 81K, Section 81Q, and through Section 81GG, the Reading Community Planning and Development Commission, CPDC, will hold a public hearing in the Select Board meeting room for Reading Town Hall at 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Massachusetts, on Monday, February 9th, 2026 at 8 p.m. to consider the proposed amendments to the locally adopted Reading subdivision regulations, specifically to Section 3.6 fees. Complete drafts of the proposed amendment are available to the public in the Public Services Department in the Town Hall and on the town website a Thursday prior to the hearing date, period.
Okay, thank you. And you brought to us, as we asked you to, some information in our drive about the costs associated with different type. Do you wanna go over what you?
Those were different towns too.
So what we did, so there was originally when we discussed this was the fee comparisons with other towns. We saw other towns were a bit higher to much higher than Reading fees. So then last discussed was, well, what does it really look to cost the town sometimes when some of these applications comes in, mostly in terms of staff hours and the costs associated with those. So we just compiled the list of most, if not all, the personnel that takes a look at subdivision processes, when and where. And so for something like an A&R, it's typically planning and engineering division, so those costs are a bit lower. That's why that fee is much lower than your typical definitive subdivision, where we hold the DRT meeting, which is an hour long. Every staff division comes, provides their comments, both for CPDC preparation and permitting preparation to the applicant. And then there's a number of divisions that do multiple revisions and reviews of a definitive subdivision process. So that's why the costs and hours are so much higher. So we wanted to just give that breakdown, really just to, again, as backup support for justification of fee increases, which are really supposed to be dedicated as like town costs, right? You don't make a profit off of them. And really actually what we found just coincidentally was like these actually came out close to our original proposal of fee updates to consider. And so then really all that turns into is the track changes bylaw for section 3.6. And for you guys to like decide and finalize those numbers. We just put in our best estimate of what you might find practical, but those can change and go up or down in any number of ways. But all of that is there. And if it's easier to look at it over the next few weeks and think about it, we did post a legal notice. We did mail it as we would like a zoning, but it doesn't go to any specific residency or other here. So if there's other ways to consider, like if you want to try to capture feedback from other people, but
people don't care. Do we have?
Andrew, do you mind sharing the bylaw 3.6?
Yep.
Yeah. Do we have a red line version of the bylaw with us? I don't think we do.
Thought so.
We have a file that says administrative fee update process that is useful, and that has the proposed fee schedule.
Trying to add the Word document. For some reason, the PDF wasn't showing the actual track changes, but it might get a little.
I don't see the bylaw even. And we have administrative fees, and we have staff hours and costs, but we don't have that.
Weird. Okay, so which is all the
don't have
more
the
reason
bylaw
to
itself,
probably
yeah.
continue and think about it more.
Yeah.
But in section 3.6, it's a really general breakdown of, and we didn't change any language really. So if there is something language based that should change, we should capture that now in this process. But virtually changing A&R plans from $100 to $200. As you saw in the staff breakdown, was generally the cost of an A&R plan review, plus $50 for each additional lot over 3, which starts to get into more review and regulations, and then same for preliminary and definitives, where we tried to stay under but anticipate that like a base cost fee plus per lot, where typically you might expect 2 to 3, sometimes 6 to 8 lots in a subdivision in Reading to get closer to that $2,000 cost that the staff fees came out to. So rather than 2,000 flat plus more, we figured 1,500 which is a good starting point. And then the preliminary is pretty similar to equaling that total. If anything, maybe this could bump up on per lots, but we tried to keep the base fees so that they would come to the same as a definitive without preliminary.
Okay. Let me ask 2 questions. Does anybody feel like they want to go ahead and vote on this tonight? Or would you like time to look at this to just kind of read, digest, affirm, and vote on it next month?
I'd rather consider it and vote next month.
Okay, that's how I'm feeling also, just
Yeah.
because I haven't actually looked at that.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to
I agree.
make sure this reads right, maths right.
Yeah. Andrew, did you say something also?
Yes, I agree. I agree with Tom.
Well, I move that we continue this matter until next month,
Okay,
March 9th.
take a second.
Second,
Okay, roll call. Andrew,
yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Heather, yes.
Tom, yes.
Okay. Great, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And just be sure that document gets into our
Should be
drive, yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, let's do motion to, and it is in the drive now, so we all have it there right now that we can look at. Motion to adjourn, all those in favor?
Oh, wait, we need a
Yes.
second, don't we?
Yeah, second.
Okay, you second? Yes.
All second, yes, all
Okay.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
We're not doing a roll call. All right,
Thank you,
guys,
guys.
thank you.
Yeah.